The Life of Killua Zoldyck, Hunter x Hunter. Killua Zoldyck is the third child of Silva and Kikyo Zoldyck and the heir of the Zoldyck family, until he runs away from home and becomes a rookie hunter. He's the best friend of Gon Freecss and is currently traveling with Alluka Zoldyck. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Killua Zoldyck. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media accounts. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Background: Killua was born as the middle child of a family of known assassins, the Zoldicks. Showing great promise from birth, Killua followed the traditional Zoldyck training, which was imparted to him by Silva and Illumi. He had already mastered many killing techniques at a tender age and was set to be one of the best assassins the family had ever produced. At the age of 3, he started training in tailing that routinely put his life at risk. At a young age, he fulfilled 3 of Alluka's requests, causing Nanika to take over. He asked her how to revert the change, and it explained its powers to him. He decided to keep it a secret from their parents, who were however informed by Mitsuba after she witnessed one episode. Silva and Kikyo questioned him about it, and he relayed what Nanika told him, adding that refusing 4 demands resulted in death only after Mitsuba is killed. At the age of 6, he was forced by Silva to battle in the martial arts tournament at the Heavens Arena until he reached the 200th floor, after which he was allowed to return home. It took him 2 months to reach the 150th floor and a total of 2 years to get to the 200th. When he was 6 or 7, he mastered the game of darts as part of basic training. Around the age of 9, he met and attempted to befriend the newly hired Canary. She thanked him for the thought, but due to their different status, she declined his offer to be friends. At an unknown point in his life, his family determined he lacked the mindset of a real assassin and had Illumi implant a special needle in his head to subliminally remodel his character through fear, as well as to prevent him from freeing Alluka from her playroom. Sick of killing, at the age of 11 he rebelled against his family, injuring his mother and older brother, and ran away from home to take the hunter exam for fun. By that time, he had already assassinated more people than the bombers combined. Hunter Exam Arc, First Phase. Killua is one of the few rookies who make it to Zaban Tunnel. He meets Tonpa and accepts the drink offered to him, despite suspecting the drink contains some chemicals. He later asks for 4 more cans, baffling Tonpa, but Killua reveals to him that he's built a resistance against poisons and would not be killed by them. Satots then arrives to announce the start of the 287th Hunter exam, in which the applicants would have to follow him to the next examination site. Killua uses his skateboard and passes by Gon Freecss, Kurapika, and Leorio. Leorio berates him for using a skateboard in an endurance test, but Gon points out that Satots only told them to follow him. Killua asks Gon's age and finds out both of them are almost 12 years old. He decides to run alongside the group and asks for Leorio's age, calling him Pops. Insulted, Leorio reveals he's not even 20 yet, to the 2 boys' shock. 60 kilometers later, Leorio becomes extremely exhausted. Killua is convinced that he's dropping out and tells Gon to leave him behind. Leorio finds the motivation to continue running, and Gon picks up Leorio's suitcase with his fishing pole. An impressed Killua wants to try it, while Gon wants to try his skateboard. Halfway up the stairs, Gon and Killua reach the front of the group, with Killua claiming the reason is the slow pace. Gon inquires why Killua wants to be a hunter. Killua answers that he doesn't, only that he's interested in taking the exam because it has been described as really tough. Although for the time being, he finds it tedious and boring, he returns the question to Gon, who explains that his father is a hunter and that he wants to follow in his footsteps. Laughing, Killua comments he's weird for not knowing how he is. Moments later, the applicants emerge in the wetlands. After the failed attempt of 2 man-faced apes to trick them, Satots leads the applicants across the Milzy wetlands and warns them not to fall to numerous wild animals living in the swamp. Killua invites Gon to get in the front of the group, as he thinks it would get them away from Hisoka Moro, who would use the fog as cover to kill someone. He explains that he could feel it because he's like him. When the applicants behind them start falling prey to the endemic flora and fauna, Killua warns Gon to remain focused on the runners in front of him, as it would be easy to fall into the animals' traps if they're separated. When he hears Leorio scream, however, Gon rushes to him against Killua's advice, leaving him to continue the run alone. Hunter Exam Arc, Second Phase. Killua makes it to the Visca Forest Preserve, the site of the second trial, which the applicants reach 5 minutes before noon. He's pleasantly surprised to see that Gon got there, and stumped by his declaration that he followed his friend's cologne. The rumbling sounds coming from inside the building cause Killua to assume that there's some kind of beast inside, but when the doors open, it turns out to be Buhara's stomach. The examinees meet gourmet hunters and proctors Menshi and Buhara, who reveal the second phase entails cooking. Buhara requests a whole roast pig from each applicant, but the only one in the preserve is the world's most dangerous pig. Nonetheless, Killua and Gon's friends easily complete the task along with 66 other applicants. However, Menchi baffles the examinees when she requests they make sushi, as none of them know what it is. He almost fails the trial, but passes the amended phase when Chairman Netero intervenes. The test is taken to Split Mountain, where examinees hunt for spider eagle eggs. At the end of this stage, there are only 42 applicants left, among whom is Killua. Hunter Exam Arc, A Game at Midnight. The 42 remaining applicants board the selection committee's airship, where Netero announces the next phase of the exam will begin at 8 a.m. the following day. Killua and Gon excitedly explore the airship before admiring the view from a window. Gon inquires about Killua's parents, who states they're both assassins before passing it off as a joke, but Gon believes it to be true. He states he refuses to take over the family business and would like to turn them in, and reveals he escaped from home. While the two chat, Netero shoots his bloodlust at them and dashes past them, pretending to have just arrived from the opposite direction. Killua concedes he's fast, but his nonchalance irritates him. Killua hopes the exam will become more challenging, so Netero challenges them to a ball game, promising to issue their licenses on the spot if they win. Killua goes first, approaching him with Rhythm Echo, but dodges all his offenses. Killua attempts to cripple him, only to be the one hurt from the kick. He switches with Gon, criticizing him when he bumps his head on the ceiling while jumping too high. Time passes, and when it seems Killua and Gon have tried every possible tactic, Netero suggests the two boys attack together. Gon manages to distract Netero long enough for Killua to kick him in the back of the head, but Netero kicks the ball away before he can grab it. Gon redirects it, and they almost succeed in catching it, but the chairman rockets between them and takes it. Killua calls it quits, having realized that Netero didn't resort to his right hand or left leg at all. He leaves without Gon, who's determined to force him to use his right hand. In the hallways, he bumps into two other applicants and, frustrated, tears them to shreds. Hunter Exam Arc, 3rd phase. In a sullen mood, he doesn't sleep all night. At 9:30 a.m., the airship lands on top of Trick Tower. The 40 applicants are informed that the objective of their trial is to get down from the tower alive within 72 hours. An examinee with experience in rock climbing begins his ascent from the side, but is devoured by a flock of flying beasts under Gon's and Killua's eyes. The two catch sight of another applicant entering the tower through a trap door, but are unable to open it. They find 5 more close together, which they point to Kurapika and Leorio. Unexpectedly, they end up in the same room, where they discover their test requires 1 more applicant to start. After 50 more minutes, Tonpa drops into the room. They're forced to vote before opening every door on their path until they come to an arena. Ben Dot informs that they must win 3 out of 5 matches against his group of 5 prisoners to advance. Tonpa goes first and, to everyone's astonishment, surrenders immediately. After learning the prisoners want to stall them, Killua comments that Tonpa actually made the right choice, since Ben Dot would have probably crushed his larynx to prevent him from surrendering and then tortured him until time ran out. Gon excitedly volunteers to go next, his eagerness baffling Killua, who sizes Sedokan up and declares him not to be a threat. He challenges Gon to a match to see whose candle can burn the longest, allowing the group to choose between a long and a short one. Kurapika tells Gon to pick and that they will vote accordingly. He selects the long one on the basis that it will last longest. Though flabbergasted by his rationale, his teammates accept his pick. After Gon won his match, Kurapika engages in a deathmatch with Majitani. Leorio judges him to be dangerous, but to Killua, it's obvious that he's never killed anyone. He's favorably impressed when Kurapika one-shots his opponent. Leroot, however, points out that the match is not over since neither contestant surrendered or died. When Kurapika refuses to finish off the unconscious Majitani, Killua offers to do so, but Kurapika declines. Killua accuses him of being selfish, but Kurapika doesn't budge, causing Killua to withdraw his support of Leorio's proposition. A few hours later, he remarks that it seems likely Majitani will not get up. By making a 10-hour bet, Leorio gets the chance to verify his condition. He certifies Majitani's alive, which prompts Killua to suspect he may only be pretending to be unconscious. His bluff is discovered, but Leorio loses a total of 50 hours in a bet and in a rock-paper-scissors game with Leroot. Seeing Killua is their last chance, Leorio despairs to the boys' irritation. Leorio's attitude changes when he recognizes his adversary as the serial killer Jonas the Dissector. His criminal record piques Killua's interest, who steps forward. As soon as Jonas consents to a deathmatch, Killua plucks out his heart in an instant, smiling at him and crushing it in front of his eyes. The 5 applicants are declared victorious, and Killua invites Ben Dot to fight to pass the time, an offer the convict fearfully declines. The examinees are forced to spend the next 50 hours inside a locked room, where Kurapika questions Killua about his feat. Killua responds he modified his hand to make it easier, and that he used to be a pro, whereas Jonas was an amateur. When the door opens, the 5 face more trials and choices. The last test consists of one big decision: choosing between a long path, which the whole group can take but requires 45 hours to clear, and a short one which requires only 3, but which can be walked by only 3 out of the 5 examinees. With less than an hour left, Killua declares that, like Leorio, he intends to continue, and is willing to fight for that right. Gon comes up with the idea of selecting the longest path and breaking down the wall separating it from the short one with the weapons provided by the examiners. The short path turns out to be a slide that takes all 5 of them to the goal mere moments before the deadline. Hunter Exam Arc, 4th Phase. The 4th phase is a manhunt on Zevil Island, wherein the 25 remaining competitors are required to target and acquire their prey's tag. After a few moments of hesitation, Gon and Killua disclose the numbers of their respective targets to each other. Killua comments Gon has a stroke of terrible luck for ending up with Hisoka. After Gon declares he feels both scared and excited, Killua wishes him good luck. Killua is the 21st to disembark. On the 3rd day, he invites his pursuer to come out. When he doesn't, Killua walks to him, but Imori jumps out of the bushes when his brothers Amori and Umori arrive. He kicks Killua in the gut, who is unaffected by the blow and pickpockets his tag. Since it's only 1 number off from his target, he asks the 2 other brothers if either of them has it. The Amori brothers get into formation, but Killua runs up a tree and runs up behind Amori, pointing his nails to his throat. When it turns out Umori is his target, he takes his tag and throws the other 2 away, switching them before the throw to trick Hanzo. 1 hour before the deadline, he leaves his hiding spot and reaches the landing site. Hunter Exam Arc, Final Phase. Netero summons all of the 9 remaining examinees, asking them what fellow applicants have their most attention and who they would be opposed to fighting. Killua replies Gon to the former question and Pakal to the latter, as it would make for a boring confrontation. 3 days later, the last trial begins at the committee-run hotel. It's revealed to be a tournament in which a single win results in clearing the exam. Netero explains that the number of matches at one's disposal reflects their scores, which befuddles Killua, who demands to know more about the scoring system. Netero refuses to disclose the specifics, but from what he says, Killua gleans that despite his physical superiority, the examiners see more potential in Gon than him. Hanzo and Gon are scheduled to duel first. Gon is immediately outmatched by Hanzo, who, after beating him up for 3 hours, breaks his arm. Gon refuses to give up, so Hanzo threatens to slice his leg off. Gon's unwillingness to have his limb cut off as well as to surrender causes the other examinees to start laughing, with Killua being left astonished by the sudden shift. Hanzo throws the match and knocks a protesting Gon unconscious. Killua asks him why he did that, confident that Hanzo would torture him into submission if he wanted to which Hanzo replies that Gon's lack of hatred caused him to like the boy, furthering Killua's envy. In the 5th match, Killua faces Pakal and immediately concedes, believing his opponents to not be worth his time. This ends up putting him against Gitaraker, who removes his needles and reveals himself to be Killua's older brother Illumi. Killua becomes afraid as Illumi proceeds to question his motives, with Killua admitting he doesn't want to become a hunter, but only challenge himself with the trials. Illumi expresses relief, stating Killua would not make a good one, as he's been molded from birth to be an assassin. Killua objects that there are other things he wants, above all being friends with Gon and living like a normal kid without killing. Killua is paralyzed by fear when Illumi threatens to kill Gon after Leorio states he already thinks of Killua as a friend. The older brother states that if Killua can defeat him, he will allow Gon to live, but he claims he already knows what Killua will choose since he trained him to never fight a stronger opponent. He orders Killua not to move as he extends his hand towards him, declaring their fight will begin the moment his fingers touch him or he moves. Distraught but unable to defy his brother, Killua surrenders. Illumi then declares he did not seriously intend to harm Gon and that he was just testing Killua, which allowed him to ascertain he is not fit for making friends. He tells Killua to go back home and the boy becomes unresponsive to what Leorio and Kurapika tell him. The following match is intended to be Leorio versus Bodoro, but Killua impales Bodoro from behind, thereby failing the hunter exam for his murder. Killua leaves the hotel and heads home to Kukuru Mountain. Zoldyck Family Arc. When he arrives in front of the testing gate, he opens it up to the 3rd door, weighing 16 tons. He lets himself be tortured by his brother Miluki for 3 weeks until he tells him Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio are awaiting him at the butler's quarters and threatens to have them kill the 3. Killua snaps one of his handcuffs and threatens Miluki back. Zeno arrives and tells Killua that he's free to go and that his father would like to speak with him. Killua is initially intimidated by Silva, but slowly opens up. He then asks his son about the hunter exam, the people he met, how he felt, and more. Killua recounts his adventures, after which Silva inquires if he would like to see his friends. Killua hesitates, but after Silva acknowledges that he's his own person and not a mere extension of him, Killua responds affirmatively. Silva has him promise that he will never betray his friends and lets him go. Kikyo attempts to stop him, but his glare causes her to desist. He reunites with Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio at the butler's quarters, where he laughs at Gon's beaten-up appearance. He orders Goto not to follow him and leaves the Zoldyck estate behind. He confirms Kurapika has guessed the butler's coin trick correctly and criticizes Gon for requesting a tourist visa instead of relying on his hunter license, who states he will not use it until he punches Hisoka in the face, although he doesn't know where he is. Kurapika reveals to the three what Hisoka told him during the hunter exam. They agreed to meet again in 6 months, on September 1st in Yorknew City. Kurapika and Leorio depart that same day, while Gon and Killua stay together. Heaven's Arena Arc. Killua confronts Gon about his future plans and makes him understand he needs to train if he wants to stand a chance at landing a blow on Hisoka. They fly to the Heaven's Arena, where they can train and earn money at the same time. Gon is called to fight right after registering, and Killua tells him to simply push his opponent, since he's opened the first door of the testing gate, which allows him to launch his opponents out of bounds. Killua makes quick work of his own adversary. Instead of heading directly to the 180th floor, he contents himself with the 50th as he wants to advance with Gon. They meet a fellow fighter, a young boy named Zushi, and his teacher Wing. The three collect their prize, 152 each, the prize of a drink. Killua blows Gon's and Zushi's minds by listing the rewards for clearing upper floors, and by revealing he squandered the money he had made in sweets. The three wait for the announcement of their next matches in the locker room. Killua and Zushi are pitted against each other. To Killua's irritation, Zushi is made out to be the frontrunner. Killua determines him not to be a threat and leisurely walks to him. He swiftly dodges Zushi's punch and strikes him in the neck from behind, earning 2 points. Surprisingly, Zushi gets up unscathed. Killua repeats the attack with more power, but Zushi recovers immediately, awarding him only 1 point. While Killua is bewildered by his resilience, Zushi takes a fighting stance that terrifies him, reminding him of Illumi. Wing yells at his pupil, causing Zushi to rescind the technique. The match continues as before, with Killua scoring point after point without managing to KO his opponent. Frustrated, Killua hits Zushi with his real power, throwing him out of the ring. His fear of causing lasting damage is however replaced by amazement when Zushi staggers back up, only lightly affected. Killua is declared the winner. As he leaves the arena, he eavesdrops on Zushi apologizing to Wing, who scolds him for using Ren before the 200th floor. To Gon, Killua confesses that he felt from Zushi vibes similar to those his brother gave off in their confrontation. Wanting to find out more about it, he proclaims he and Gon are shooting for the top. They soon reach the 100th floor, getting their own rooms. Killua warns Gon they might meet real contenders, but the boy defeats his opponent without difficulty. They easily advance to the 150th floor, where a discussion about Zushi renews Killua's interest in Ren. He comes up with a contrived plan to find out more, but Gon points out they could simply ask Zushi. His explanation, however, is incomprehensible to them. Wing warns them against acquiring incomplete knowledge, to which Killua responds his brother is probably a student of Nen too. Killua requests a lecture, so Wing takes him and Gon to his hotel room. There, he proceeds to demonstrate the Nen of the Flame. He asks Killua if he can kill him, who responds he lacks the power to do so. After going through the first 2 steps, Wing states he will kill Killua and unleashes his Ren, causing a frightened Killua to jump back. After Wing finishes his explanation, Gon and Killua leave. Killua is certain that Wing lied, as both his power and Zushi's impossible resistance to injury were real. Not much later, the two qualify for the 200th floor. At around 8:10 p.m., they exit the elevator, but a wall of bloodlust prevents them from walking down the hallway to their registration desk. When Killua yells at the perpetrator to come out, a clerk turns the corner and informs them their eligibility expires at midnight. Hisoka then shows himself and pushes them further back with another wave of bloodlust, declaring they're not ready to fight on that floor yet. Despite his protests, Killua is unable to advance and can't figure out why. Wing appears behind the two boys and offers to teach them the real Nen. The clerk informs Killua that if he does not register by midnight, due to having failed to do so once before, he will be barred from all further combat. Killua asks Wing if they can be back by midnight, to which the teacher replies it's up to them. In Wing's room, he demonstrates the real Nen, and tells them they must master 10 lest their bodies are destroyed by malicious Nen attacks. He states there are 2 methods to awaken Nen, an orthodox one that would require 6 months, and an improper one that would jolt their aura nodes open on the spot, forcing them to learn 10 in minutes lest they pass out. Killua wonders why Wing suddenly decided to teach them, to which he replies that everyone on the 200th floor can use Nen and will forcefully initiate anyone who does not know it. He opens their aura nodes and, after a few seconds of panic, Gon and Killua manage to contain the leaking aura. Wing activates his Ren and directs it at them until they manage to cross the barrier of bloodlust, after which they return to the Heavens Arena and pass through Hisoka's. Right afterwards, they're confronted by 3 fighters, Guido, Sadaso, and Realvelt. Gon and Killua rush to the registration desk, where they don't really respond to the clerk's enthusiasm about the prizes. Killua realizes that Guido, Sadaso, and Realvelt want to pick a fight on the same day as Gon to get an easy win, and Gon gives them the liberty to choose. They receive new rooms and discover Gon's match is scheduled for the following day, March 11th, against Guido. Killua spectates the match in person and yells at Gon to wait for Guido to get dizzy when he uses Tornado Top. He becomes deeply concerned about his friend when he cancels 10. Gon is eventually defeated, suffering multiple bone fractures. The following day, he chastises Gon for his recklessness. Wing arrives moments later to rebuke him as well, and Killua lies about how long it will take for Gon's injuries to heal. Wing thus forbids Gon from training in Nen for 2 months. He speaks to Killua in private, inquiring about their goals. Killua claims not to have any interest in Battle Olympia, but claims he cannot speak for Gon since he was clearly enjoying his match. He admits he's like him at times, only that he knows how to pick his battles. He assures the teacher Gon is not going to break his promise a second time. Sensing his regret, Killua asserts they would have learned Nen anyway and refuses to resume his training until Gon can too. He returns to Gon's room to inform him that Wing has authorized him to practice the 10 of the Flame, but finds him already performing it and joins him. 1 month later, he books tickets for Hisoka's match against Castro. When he goes to Gon's room, he's shocked to see his friend has already made a full recovery. He updates him on the magician's track record, noticing that despite claiming to be scared, Gon looks eager to fight him. Wing, however, forbids Gon from seeing the match. Killua sees part of Castro's interview and decides to check if he has a reason to be as self-assured as he sounds. He activates Zetsu and easily gets past security. He glimpses Castro sitting in a chair, then a voice causes him to turn around, and he sees Castro standing behind him. He pretends he's a fan who wants an autograph, but Castro recognizes him and inquires about his impression of him. Killua concedes he seems indeed powerful. Castro returns the compliment, warning him to activate Zetsu when he's further away. Killua asks him how he managed to be in 2 places at once, to which Castro responds that he can't tell a potential opponent, seeing through Killua's lie that he no longer intends to fight at the Heavens Arena, then specifies the match will give him the answer. As soon as the match begins, Killua notices an irregularity with Castro's attacks. He recognizes his Tiger Bite fist, and when Hisoka figures out the nature of his double ability, Killua thinks that his initial impression that for a moment 2 Castro had appeared was correct. Like the rest of the audience, he's confused and appalled by Hisoka's grisly show, which allows him to kill his opponent. 1 month later, Killua and Gon reprise their training under Wing. The two are mesmerized by the promise string, after which Killua asks Wing what Hisoka's ability is. He plays the tape for them and states the magician used strands of aura, but his students are unable to see them. He tells them Hisoka is concealing them with Ian, and tasks Gon and Killua with practicing Ren until they can see them through Gyo. He authorizes them to fight on their last available day, which for Killua is June 9th. After Gon, Killua, and Zushi leave Wing's room, they decide to head to Killua's to revise what they learned. On the elevator, they sense Guido, Rielvelt, and Sadaso waiting for them. Killua is annoyed by their persistence and leads his friends away from them. Having sensed Sadaso's intentions, after they're finished with practice, Killua shadows Zushi, who is knocked unconscious by the newbie hunter. He steps out, offering to take Gon's place and give a win to each of the 3. After registering, he warns them not to play dirty again, but trails off before threatening them. As he carries Zushi away, he thinks to himself that it's difficult to live without killing. That night, he learns Gyo, and the following day, he discovers that Gon was blackmailed too. He pretends to have found Zushi asleep on the steps and has Wing play the tape for him, managing to see all 15 strands of aura and correctly guessing their properties. Since both Gon and Killua have achieved a good working command of the technique, their teacher allows them to fight earlier than agreed, so Killua picks May 29th, the date of his scheduled fight against Sadaso, pretending it's his birthday. Later, he and Gon discuss the treachery of their 3 opponents, and Killua asserts they will never do anything of that sort again. On the day of his match, 10 minutes before the start, he appears in Sadaso's dressing room and threatens to kill him if he ever shows up before him or Gon again. Killua is thus declared winner by withdrawal. After Sadaso, who has left the Heavens Arena for good, informs Guido and Rielvelt, the latter speculates Killua did not come to them because he doesn't know their abilities. Killua makes his presence manifest, maintaining that he simply knew he could warn them at any time. He recommends they respect the rules. He and Gon keep training, and on June 4th, Killua observes Gon's match against Guido, taking note of his friend's fury, and later confronts Rielvelt. As soon as the signal's given, Killua leaps up, attempting a sneak attack, but jumps too high and Rielvelt escapes with Aura Burst. The latter pulls out his whips and tries to push Killua out of the ring with Song of Defense, but Killua easily catches them, which result in his electrocution. Unfazed, Killua flings his opponent high in the air, revealing that he can withstand electrical shocks, and asks a plunging Rielvelt if he wants him to catch him. Rielvelt begs to him, so Killua complies while holding onto his electrical whips, knocking him out. After the match, he cautions Gon about the electricity, to which the boy responds he has already come up with a plan. Killua gets another win after Guido forfeits and watches Gon's fight with Rielvelt. The following day, Wing introduces his students to Hatsu. Through water divination, Killua is revealed to be a transmuter. After 1 month, Killua and Gon hone their Hatsu to the point that Wing announces they've mastered the basics. He tells Killua that he will pass the hunter exam without any problems should he attempt it again. The following day, he spectates Gon's fight against Hisoka, thinking that Hisoka's awareness of his superiority causes him to be careless. When Hisoka shares the character traits associated with enhancers and transmuters, Killua reflects that he's correct. He's shocked when Hisoka gives Gon a sample of his real power and realizes he has attached bungee gum, although only after the fact, as well as the difficulty of avoiding the ability. After the match, Killua and Gon pack up and set off to Whale Island. Yorknew City arc. As soon as they arrive at Gon's house, Mito brings them into line. After a hearty lunch, the two boys explore the forest. Gon takes Killua to the place where he met Kite and comes upon a welcome back gift left by Kon. When night falls, as they stargaze, Killua reflects that, unlike Gon, he doesn't have a goal, only things that he doesn't want to do. Gon embarrasses him by claiming Killua is his first friend his age, but after a moment he reciprocates. He agrees to travel around with Gon until he finds something he wants to do. He then inquires about Gon's birth mother, to which the boy replies Mito is his only mother. They head back and Killua falls asleep while Gon and Mito talk about Jin downstairs. In the morning, he tries unsuccessfully to twist the iron box left by Jin open. He suggests Gon try using Nen, and the metal casing breaks, revealing an inscription like the one on Wing's promise string on its components. Gon opens up the next box with his hunter's license. They find 3 items inside: a cassette tape, a ring, and a memory card. Before they listen to the tape, Killua recommends setting the stereo to record. The recorded voice turns out to be Jin's, who challenges Gon to find him. He stops the tape before learning anything about his biological mother. After that, the tape begins rewinding itself and the stereo records over it. Killua tries to stop it by breaking it, but Jin's aura prevents him from doing any damage. In the end, both tapes are erased, to which Killua understands to be a way for Jin to cover his tracks, particularly against tracking Nen abilities. They focus on the memory card next, which Killua identifies as belonging to a Joy Station. He orders one for same-day shipping. All 30 slots of the memory card turn out to be used up by a game called Greed Island. Killua copies the save files before looking into the game, which is out of production. He discovers it's for hunters only, and it's sold at exorbitant prices. When they can't find any used copies, and after posting an ad only receiving a series of scam offers, Killua phones Miluki for information on the game, trading him for a copy of the memory card. Miluki advises him to look it up on the hunter's website and tells him copies of the game will be auctioned off at the Southern Peace auction. He prevents Gon from using his hunter license on his home computer. When they receive the hunter website's URL, they log in from an internet cafe. After paying a fee, they learn that Greed Island was created by Nen users, that players are transported into it, and that 7 copies will be auctioned off in Yorknew City. They try to find valuable loot to sell so they can participate in the auction until their differences of opinion turn their money-raising attempts into a competition. Killua manages to raise $286 million before a gamble leaves him penniless, causing him to lose the competition. As they roam a market, Killua talks Gon into buying himself a phone. They're assisted by Leorio, who brings down the price of a better model. In their hotel room, they discuss how to proceed regarding the Southern Peace auction. Killua observes that something that can be bought is not a real treasure, which Leorio and Gon oppose. Leorio comes up with the idea of creating a conditional auction based on arm wrestling, where contenders pay a fee to challenge Gon and win a diamond. Killua has misgivings about the method due to the low profit. He notices that Gon struggles for real against a young woman. By the following day, the number of challengers has already decreased as rumors began to spread. Leorio, however, isn't worried, as that was his plan all along. As he predicted, they're contacted by people from the underground, who give them an invitation to a conditional auction, where the Mafia offers $200 million for each of the 7 people on the list they capture. Killua surmises that the 7 targets are spiders and that they stole from the Mafia, which is the reason why the selection and payment methods of the conditional auction were changed. This prompts them to call Kurapika, who doesn't pick up the phone. Against Leorio's hope that Kurapika has already captured a few members of the troop, Killua reveals that his father killed one 3 years before and warned his children to stay away from the spiders. On September 3rd, they purchase the Southern Peace catalog, where they learn more about the days when Greed Island will be auctioned. After that, they post an ad with a reward. As they walk next to a stand participating in a silent auction, Gon picks up a knife, which Killua recognizes as Ben's knife. He has Leorio get it for them and asks Gon how he knew it was a valuable object. Gon replies he sensed aura around it, which causes Killua to determine they can use Gyo to spot objects made by master craftsmen. The two participate in the silent auction. They find 4 objects shrouded in aura, and on all of them, someone named Zepile has already made a bid. Killua proposes making a bid at the last minute, which allows them to win 3 items. They take them to the Southern Peace auction house, but they're told their catalog has long since been completed, and suggest they try auctioning their items off at a dealer's market. Killua has an antique dealer appraise their items, which he passes off as property he found in his parents' storehouse. The specialist they turn to is sincere in his appraisal of the lithograph and the handmade doll, but lies about the worth of the wooden statue. Zepal prevents Gon and Killua from being swindled, claiming the statue is likely a vault of treasure. In return for his help, they treat him to lunch. They start to exchange information by asking one question each, with Gon and Killua explaining they only picked objects that had aura around them, and that Gon wants to find a copy of Green Island because it might contain clues as to where he can find his father. Zepal reveals he made the vase the two boys were bidding on when he was working as a counterfeit, and, impressed with them and smitten with Gon complimenting his craftsmanship skills, offers them his services. He opens the wooden vault and the three take the treasure to an auction preview, where, in order to lower the price, some interested parties list ways in which the contents of the vault may have been forged. Despite Zepal's intervention, customers hesitate. Curious, Gon asks him what doctoring methods exist, and he explains cauterization, autopsy, and ostomy. They're contacted by Leorio, who's received a real tip on the spiders. Gon and Killua run off, leaving Zepal in charge of the auction. They meet up with Leorio, and the three head to the bar where Nobunaga and Machi were spotted. Killua determines they're too powerful for them to take on, and realizes they want to lure someone out. The increase in tension between the spiders causes Gon, Killua, and Leorio to tense up. When the two prepare to leave, Gon insists on carrying on with the plan. Killua agrees to trek them with Zetsu on the condition they fall back at the first sign of danger. He asks Gon if he has any shadowing experience, and he replies he followed Hisoka during the hunter exam, which earns him a punch from Killua. Although the two spiders can sense them, they can't determine their position. When the two stop in the middle of a courtyard, Gon and Killua hide in the adjoining abandoned building. When Nobunaga glances in Killua's direction, the two attempt to escape, but find two other spiders blocking their way. Killua runs into Finks and tries to confuse him with his speed, but the spider grabs him by the ankle and dodges the rocks he throws at him, as well as blocking his kick. By tearing the skin off his ankles, Killua manages to free himself. However, Nobunaga cuts his retreat, having entered the room through the window. They begin to interrogate Killua, who answers their questions sincerely. After asking him if he knows any Nen user who wears chains, Nobunaga demands to know if he prefers to die immediately or later. Killua accepts to be taken to their hideout. Killua spots Hisoka as soon as they enter, and they pretend not to know each other. Gon, however, reacts to his presence, but Killua manages to pass off his surprise reaction as being aimed at Shizuku, who arm wrestled him for the diamond. Impressed that Gon defeated her, Nobunaga challenges him at the same game. He beats him several times without effort while talking about Uvogin and the Chain Dude. Killua repeats they've never heard of him, so Nobunaga threatens to kill him if he speaks out of place again. As he continues talking about him, Killua realizes the Chain Dude is Kurapika. When Gon, in a fit of rage, defeats Nobunaga and is restrained by Phaeton, Killua moves to help him, but Hisoka points a card at his throat. From the spider's interactions, Killua understands that Pakunoda has the power to read memories through physical contact and that she's checked them while they were in the car. Nobunaga decides to keep them around until Chrollo's return to nominate Gon as Uvogin's replacement. Gon and Killua are locked in a room, with Nobunaga guarding the only entrance. Killua agonizes over whether he would have been able to intervene had the spiders wanted to kill Gon, sensing he would have left him to die. As Ilumi's voice echoes ominously in his mind, he rejects that conclusion and stands up, ready to fight. However, he quickly desists and punches the wall in frustration. After a while, Gon tries to remember the three doctoring methods explained to them by Zepal. Killua prepares to lay down his life to let Gon escape, despite being aware their chances are extremely slim. Gon stops him by punching him, which causes them to bicker until Gon remembers the third doctoring trick, ostomy. They prepare for combat, but instead of engaging Nobunaga, they each kick a hole in a lateral wall. Being closest to the stairs, Killua immediately runs down, but returns to pick up Gon when he asks for his help to confront Nobunaga. They escape while in a state of Zetsu, with Killua chastising Gon for his naivete, as they would have never managed to defeat the swordsman. To get stronger so they can continue chasing the troop, Killua proposes asking Kurapika for help, as he believes he's the chain guy. They finally get through to Kurapika. Killua asks him for help in improving his Nen, but Kurapika refuses to help them against the troop, even when Killua offers information in exchange. Killua eventually snaps, swearing he will do anything to get Kurapika to cooperate, before handing the phone back to Gon. Kurapika promises to call them back. They return to the hotel where they find Zepal and Leorio drinking themselves silly. After they recount what they've gone through, Killua states that for Kurapika to have managed to kill a spider, there must be some secret to Nen. Shortly afterward, Kurapika calls Gon to let him know several Phantom Troop members are dead. Killua and Gon reunite with Kurapika the following day, while the two boys have an ice cream eating contest in Day Road Park. After Leorio joins the group, Kurapika tells them about limitations and vows, adding that he will die if he uses his abilities on anyone outside of the troop. Troubled by the importance of the information, Killua protests against Kurapika's decision to share it with them and warns him that one of the surviving members has the ability to read memories. Unable to predict what Hisoka will do after the death of his target, Killua incites Kurapika to go after the spiders as soon as possible. With the additional objective of earning the reward offered by the Mafia, Kurapika refuses, but moments later he receives a text from Hisoka telling him the spiders' corpse were fake. Melody also tells him the 10 Dons have cancelled the reward, causing Killua to change his mind about pursuing the troop. Gon insists on going through with it, adding he has a plan on how to access Greed Island, of which he doesn't want to disclose the details yet. Finding the estimated and then corrected chance of success to be satisfactory, Killua agrees to leave the game to him and chase the spiders, provided Kurapika assists them. He silently wishes Kurapika will turn them down, but he ends up accepting their help. Killua volunteers to monitor their hideout. He protests when Kurapika gives Gon the job of distracting the troop so he can abduct Pakunoda. Killua and Leorio leave the table after Gon asks Kurapika to point a Nen blade at his heart, but return clandestinely and eavesdrops on his explanation, making themselves manifest when Kurapika seems to be about to go along with Gon's request, and demand he does the same. Kurapika retorts he had no intention of stabbing anyone with Judgment Chain, and that he shared the secrets to reward his friends for their loyalty. Feeling more motivated than before, Killua stakes out the troop's hideout, but finds out that dozens of identical buildings have sprung out in the surrounding area. He explores the area and updates Kurapika, who tells him to go back to his post and wait for Melody to reach him. Sometime later, she calls him from the top of a building nearby, telling him to hang up the phone and whisper her a command so she can prove her identity to him. Thanks to her hearing, they manage to follow the group of spiders who leave the hideout from a safe distance, even as they mingle with the crowd. Melody asks Killua if he's an assassin, which he confirms. He awkwardly states he's not helping Kurapika because he wants to, prompting her to smile knowingly. Killua verifies if Pakunoda is in the group, which also comprises of Nobunaga and Chrollo. The two follow them on the subway, which allows Kurapika to determine they're headed to the Hotel Beitical. Kurapika and Gon launch themselves in pursuit, with Killua unable to stop them. When Chrollo, Machi, and Shizuku stop to confront them, Killua arrives just in time to take Kurapika's place, and he and Gon hand themselves over to the spiders. Machi binds them up with her Nen threads, taking them to the lobby of Hotel Beitical. The three spiders phone their companions to let them know where they are, which Killua deduces will allow Kurapika to know as well, through Melody. He comes up with a plan, but requires the others to synchronize with him, so he continuously whispers to Melody to give them a signal if she can hear them. Leorio suddenly makes a scene in the lobby, communicating to the two captives the planned time through a coded message. 3 minutes before the execution, Nobunaga, Pakunoda, and Kortopi arrive at the hotel. Pretending not to want to look at them, Killua closes his eyes and tries to stall Pakunoda, who manages to read their memories 1 instant before the lights go off. Killua instantly frees himself and breaks her arm. He tries to set Gon free by killing Machi, but she blocks his claws with her chest muscles and restrains him. When the lights return, the spiders find out that Chrollo is missing. Kurapika leaves them a message warning Pakunoda not to share what she discovered. When he phones the spiders again, Kurapika uses Killua to verify if all the members are present. Gon and Killua are then taken to the Phantom Troop's hideout and chained. After a heated debate, Pakunoda is allowed to take Gon and Killua to Lingon Airport. On the way there, Pakunoda asks them why they don't run away from her, since she's injured. But Gon replies that they don't want Kurapika to become a murderer. When they're about to board a blimp, Hisoka appears and threatens to kill Gon and Killua if he doesn't get to fight Chrollo. Kurapika allows him to get on board as well, and the hostage exchange is carried out smoothly. Kurapika apologizes to Gon and Killua for putting them in danger, but states his quest against the Phantom Troop is not over. Greed Island Arc. On September 6th, Gon hopes Kurapika's fever won't go down for a while, so he wouldn't go after the remaining spiders. Unlike Killua, he's convinced that revenge is no longer Kurapika's objective. After Killua verifies that the spiders have put no bounties on their heads, Gon tells him his plan to be hired by Batara as players instead of trying to purchase the game, which Killua estimates to be likely to succeed. They head to the Southern Peace auction house where they meet Finks and Phaeton. Finks cuts their retreat and announces they're not pursuing Kurapika, since his Nen may become stronger after his death and become too much for Chrollo to bear. Gon inquires about Pakunoda, learning that she's died. Finks tells the two of them that she was thankful to them. Gon and Killua approach Batara after the auction, claiming to be hunters and offering to play the game for him. They're initially not believed, but Batara agrees to have Tsezugera assess them informally when Gon reveals he owns a save file of the game and the ring. At Tsezugera's request, the boys perform Ren, however their prowess is deemed insufficient. Offended, they vow to pass the tryouts on September 10th. Killua concedes that to get stronger, they need to start working on their Nen abilities instead of just using Ten and Ren, although he finds limitations as strict as Kurapika's unsuitable. He tries to help Gon come up with an idea, then when it's time for him to work on his idea, taunts him to keep him focused. After electrocuting himself with a taser, he attempts to replicate the properties of electricity, generating a small spark between his fingers. He makes rapid progress while Gon is stumped. When he hears Gon exult, Killua is relieved and at the same time determined to stay ahead. They keep training until the 10th, when they show up for the tryouts. Killua is surprised by the limited amount of information they're given and wonders whether he made the right call staying in his seat or if he should line up. Puhat's remarks causes him to understand that the tryouts are not conducted on a first-come, first-served basis. With renewed resolve, he goes in before Gon and, instead of his Ren, shows Sesugeta his Nen ability. He makes the cut, telling a baffled Sesugeta that he's been exposed to electricity since he was a baby. Intrigued by the loud crash that precedes Gon's admittance, he asks him what his special ability is, choking him when the boy refuses to answer. Sesugeta gives them a contract, which they give to Leorio for a quick check. From it, Killua guesses that Batara wants some items from inside the game. At 5 p.m., they ride a train to Batara's castle. They decide the order of entrance into the game through rock, paper, scissors, with Gon placing first and Killua 17th. Killua encourages his friend to use the saving file left to him by Jin and tells him to wait for him at the starting point. As soon as he enters the game, he feels eyes on himself from two directions, which he reckons to be where they can find two towns. He and Gon have a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide where to go, which is won by Gon. After learning that Jin left Gon only a recorded message, Killua suggests that they find out more about the game in a town. Shortly afterwards, they're targeted by Latarza, who casts Trace on Killua, who fails to outrun the spell. Releasing his bloodlust, Killua demands to know what Latarza did to him, who flees to Masadora. They head to the closest city, Antokiba, while wondering about the spell cast on Killua, which the latter determines to be magic from the game. They familiarize themselves with the monthly contests held in the city, the card conversion system, and the currency used in the game, the latter piece of knowledge being acquired at the cost of working in a restaurant for a few hours after eating a meal without knowing that Jenny aren't an accepted method of payment. Hearing a commotion, they run towards it and find Jeet dead, his midsection having blown up from the inside. The two boys become fearful that the spell cast on Killua might have a similar effect, but Nyx assures them that there's no such spell on the island and that the culprit is another player. He invites them to join his alliance, claiming to have a surefire, non-violent method to clear the game. Gon and Killua are suspicious at first, but accept to follow him when he gives them information about spells and teaches them to summon their binders when another player targets them. Other recruits are present at the meeting, such as Biscuit, Abengane, and Puhat. Genthru explains that there are no spells that can harm players in the game, and that the ones cast on the recruits are meant to gather information. He claims Jeet was killed by a ruthless player known as the Bomber. Gon, Abengane, and Killua then guess the 3 different methods to gather cards. Nyx incites them to join them so they can put an end to the violence of the game. Gon apologizes to Killua and refuses the offer. Killua declines as well, later inquiring about the reason behind Gon's decision. Gon confesses he was bothered by the way Nyx talks about Jin's creation and that players would go to such lengths to acquire cards. Killua helps him enlarge his horizons, suggesting that consensual violence and spellcasting are not inherently negative. Gon thanks him and tells him how happy he is that they're together, with an embarrassed Killua looking away while thinking he's the lucky one. Unbeknownst to them, Biscuit, which I'm gonna call Bisky from now on because she likes being called that, is spying on them, keen on ruining their friendship. Gon teaches Killua his trick to win at rock, paper, scissors, which was taught to him by a fisherman and consists in carefully looking at the opponent's fist right before the throw. 4 days later, on the 15th, Gon and Killua participate in the rock, paper, scissors tournament. They compete against each other in the finals, where Killua defeats Gon by switching hands at the last second. He's awarded the Sword of Truth, which he converts into a card. They come up with a few methods to defend their prize without spells. They notice they're being followed, but their tactics manage to thwart the attempts of the first 2 players who try to take their Sword of Truth, with Gon taking the spell card from a 3rd player's hand before he can cast it. In the end, however, they're surrounded by a group of competent players and lose the card. They decide to go to Masadora to get spells. They exchange their cards for money and buy a sketch map of the island. They're excited to learn that monsters and bandits lurk on the way to Masadora. Before they leave, Bisky begs them to let her join them. Killua refuses, but she follows them anyway. Despite their speed, Bisky manages to keep up with them. At one point, they seem to be ambushed by bandits, who, however, implore them to give them money to purchase medicine to fight off a deadly epidemic. Gon and Killua give them almost everything they have, but surprisingly get nothing in return. As soon as they leave the forest and head into the Badlands, they're attacked by Cyclops. Gon's punch has no effect on them, but they manage to easily defeat the whole group when Killua discovers their eye is their weakness. They're forced to flee when they're spotted by a melanin lizard. They waste 10 minutes trying unsuccessfully to catch a hyper puffball and later a bubble horse. They repeatedly fail to beat different Greed Island monsters until they see a suit of armor walking towards them. Bisky impatiently tells them to use Gyo, which allows them to find the radio rat controlling it and turn it into a card. Bisky proclaims herself as their new Nen instructor. Killua's reluctance causes her to hit him. Despite his continued protests, after introducing herself, she reveals she used to be Wing's teacher and shows the two boys she's defeated the monsters they struggle against, claiming there's plenty of players who could kill them. She then senses Binold's bloodlust. Killua is amazed by her sensorial abilities and speed. After taking a detour, Gon and Killua reach her in time to see her effortlessly defeat her opponent. At their first training exercise, she has Gon and Killua fight Binold for 2 weeks inside a rocky arena. Killua nearly loses an eye while attempting to approach him, so he suggests throwing rocks at him. Taking the cue from Killua, Gon strikes the wall with Ko and uses a boulder as a shield. Half a day later, they have him surrounded with rocks blocking his field of vision. Gon creates a diversion, allowing Killua to pin him to the ground. Gon, however, stops him, insisting on training for the whole 2 weeks until they can take him one-on-one. They allow Binold to rest, awakening when he tries to use Zetsu. By the 10th day, both he and Killua become strong enough to defeat him. He acknowledges it, but Gon thanks him for his help. As he hoped, Binold promises to leave the island and turn himself in. Grinding the progress of the game to a screeching halt, Bisky focuses on training the two boys physically and in Nen. She starts by having them run to Masadora in 3 hours and back in 2.5, both trips leaving Gon winded. Instead of buying spells, she acquires 2 shovels and a wheelbarrow, ordering her students to dig their way to Masadora. The training is exhausting, and to top it off, Bisky has them sleep while keeping part of their brain vigilant, which, luckily for Killua, he learned as part of his assassin training. After a couple of days, Gon comes up with the idea of enfolding the shovel with his aura, discovering Shu. This allows them to progress much more rapidly, but also to tire out more quickly. They steadily improve and finally make it to Masadora, only to return to the Badlands once again. Bisky has them face off against all the monsters in the region, with Killua catching the bubble horse 2 weeks before Gon. Bisky then introduces them to Ko and the best technique to defend against it, Ken. She nudges Gon with her Ko-covered fist, knocking him back and causing him to bleed, leading them to realize the power of the technique. She tries again, this time waiting for Gon to exhaust his aura, which, to Killua's marvel, occurs in about 2 minutes. After 1 month of Shu and Ken training, she teaches them Ryu, the instantaneous redistribution of aura through Gyo for combat purposes, and has them hone it by sparring together. They start off slowly, but become capable of performing Ryu at combat speed in only 2 weeks. She thus introduces them to training by Nen type. They begin with an enhancement exercise in which both show remarkable skill, especially Killua. He and Bisky watch Gon smash a boulder with rock. After Gon communicates his decision to base his Nen abilities on rock, paper, scissors, Killua showcases his own ability. When they discover it's almost New Year's Eve, Gon reminds Killua of the approaching deadline for the Hunter exam. They head to Masadora to learn about how to leave the island, and after defeating a wolf pack and the harbor master, Killua leaves the island. Gon recommends him to ask the Kiriko to take him to the exam site. After using the transport ticket card, Killua is taken to a room similar to the game's entrance, but he can tell Elena is different from Eita, assuming them to be NPCs. He selects Dole Harbor as his destination and is transported there. To his surprise, he doesn't feel any different outside of the game. He completes his registration, learning the exam will be held in Biscaf Moro, and after taking a shower, heads to where the Kiriko live. He reaches them by night and fills them in on his adventures with Gon. He stays at their place for a few days before they transport him to Biscaf Moro. He then follows the Kiriko's directions and arrives at the exam site, where he fails to recognize the Amori brothers and others who took the previous Hunter exam with him. The examiner of the first phase demands all 1,489 applicants battle for 2 hours and bring him 5 badges. As soon as he closes the door, Killua proceeds to knock out all the examinees, including Zepile. After an hour and a half, he brings all their badges to the stunned proctor. He phones Netero, who declares Killua the only applicant to have passed the 288th Hunter exam without other trials. Killua then contacts his brother Miluki to acquire 2 specially made yo-yos, after which he returns to Greed Island. He declines Eita's offer to explain the rules to him again and looks at the cards Gon and Bisky obtained during his absence. To get practice with spells, he has Gon cast Contact. He looks at the list of players Gon has met and is horrified to find a Crollo Lucifer among them. When they bring Bisky into the loop, she tells them about exorcism. Killua briefly leaves the game to inform Kurapika, who however is confident the person they met is not Crollo. When he returns, Bisky has Gon demonstrate the prototypes of his Nen abilities. The three finally start playing the game for real. After Gon uses Rock to obtain 3 King White Stag Beetles, Killua suggests monopolizing the card, but they're unable to convert anymore. Killua explores the mansion where the Gold Dust Girl is held prisoner, after which he tells Gon and Bisky where they can find her and defeats the guard. They acquire 1 Gold Dust Girl each and 1 Paladin's necklace from the monthly tournament in Antokiba, which they duplicate before converting it so Gon can wear it. On the way to Dorias, they collect Witch's Love Potion, Risky Dice, and Memory Helmet. Kazul, who took Sword of Truth from them, contacts them for a trade. They exchange 1 Witch's Love Potion for 1 Book of VIP passes. Killua wins a Rainbow Diamond and a fledgling gambler with the help of the Risky Dice, until Bisky is forced to knock him out to halt his budding gambling addiction. By facing all manners of trials over the course of 1 month, they gather 50 specific slot cards in total, among which are Fledgling CEO, Doyen's Growth Pills, and Staff of Judgment. Gon's surprised they've managed to convert so many rare items into cards, which leads Killua to conclude there aren't many competitive teams. Gon's words inspire Killua into getting into the business of trading leave cards to weak players in return for rare cards, raising their total number to 57 and later to 61, 51 without duplicates. They resolve to keep looking for cards on their own, while also trading players they encounter for them and information. Gon wonders if the Paladin's necklace can cancel the curse on the villagers they donated their belongings to. Killua recommends trying. Their past charity causes the villagers to trust them, and the necklace heals them. In return, the villagers give them a Wild Luck Alexandrite. Kazul contacts them again, offering to form an alliance since Genthru is close to completing the game. Killua repeatedly butts heads with Asta, but eventually they're accepted into the alliance and begin to exchange information. By sharing Genthru's ability, they obtain 2 rare cards. Seeing that multiple members have already fulfilled Countdown's conditions, Killua plans to extort more cards from them, but Gon tells them how to cancel the ability for free. His willingness to cooperate also earns them a lot of crucial information. The alliance decides to monopolize one of the 4 cards Genthru's team lacks, and settle on number 2, which no player has yet, which they discover to be in Sofrabi. Killua expects that finding an NPC with information on the cards might even take weeks, but they find several who know about it, although they offer no useful details. Kazul eventually finds an NPC who's willing to point them to Plot of Beach if they drive Razor and his 14 devils out of the town. Goda Inu comments that the condition to trigger the event is cruel, which perplexes Killua. The Alliance members head to the bar where they find 4 pirates. When they ask them to leave, Bobobo challenges them to push him out of a flaming ring. Zeho volunteers, but from his Ren, Killua can tell he's too weak. Realizing that Gon wants to use his special move, Killua stops him and competes in his stead. He pours liquor on Bobobo's face and sets it ablaze with an electric spark, winning the match when his opponent rolls out of the ring. The Alliance members are taken to the lighthouse-turned-gym where Razor and the other pirates each challenge an opponent to a sport. Bobobo swears to take revenge on Killua. The first discipline is boxing, and the pirate in charge of it defeats Montreux with only Gon, Killua, and Bisky comprehending how he did it. Realizing their allies are too weak to be of use, Killua recommends the 3 of them throw their matches while gathering as much information on contests as possible. The alliance eventually loses and disbands, surmising the bombers won't be able to form the necessary group of 15 to win the card. Gon, Killua, Bisky, and Goda Inu, however, decide to try again after finding more powerful allies, with Killua finally understanding what Goda Inu meant by cruel. The 4 brainstorm to find potential teammates on their contracts, with Gon considering Binot, who however is either dead or has left the game. He then proposes finding out who Crollo is, since an alliance would not make sense if it were simply a spider seeking to clear the game, which they determine not to be the case. Despite Killua's objections, Gon insists on finding out who it is. They teleport to him and find out Crollo is Hisoka, who tells them he's looking for Crollo inside the game. Bisky invites him to join their alliance, defeat Razor, while discreetly informing the others he's lying. He takes them to Ai, his constant leering disquieting Gon and Killua. Killua begins to feel uneasy, but is unable to pinpoint the source of his suspicions. Hisoka's declaration that he's bored triggers an epiphany, and Killua becomes certain that he's already made contact with the spiders and that there's an exorcist on Greed Island. He refrains from sharing his inferences with Gon, who conveniently asks Hisoka to check his contacts to see if he's met Tetsugeta. To Killua's surprise, Hisoka lets them read the names of the players he's already encountered, among which there are no members of the Phantom Troop. Killua surmises he was wrong, unaware that Hisoka doctored the list with texture surprise. Inu negotiates for them, and Tezugeta accepts. Killua wants to test him first. He and Gon are impressed with his jumping ability and copy it, shattering his record on the first try. Killua is challenged by Gon multiple times, winning every contest, and approves of Tezugeta. Their alliance now counting 9 members, they each choose a sport that fits their abilities. After a week of training, they head to the lighthouse, having recruited 6 more players to reach the required number. Barry, Kess, and Rodriet bets their opponents, after which Razor plans to enter the game himself. Bobobo, however, refuses to throw his match and urges Killua to fight him outside of the gym. He incites a revolt, which causes him to be killed by Razor. Killua pretends they hadn't chosen who would play sumo yet, assigning the win to a fodder player. Razor then challenges them to a game of dodgeball with the aid of his 7 Nen Beasts. Killua is shocked to learn that he was a death row convict and that Greed Island takes place in the real world. Inu uses his own ability so they have 8 players, and after the rules are explained, the match begins. Killua jumps to catch the ball for his team together with Devil number 6, which lets him have it. Inu takes out number 4 and number 5 before Razor catches his 3rd throw and strikes back. Gon and Killua manage to follow his lightning-fast passages and warn Tezugeta, who reacts to the throw in time, to survive, although he's forced to leave the court. Catching the ball, Killua is unsettled by the momentum it retained even after bouncing off Tezugeta on the floor. He reflects on how to keep the ball even after throwing and, following Gon's suggestion, gives it to Hisoka, who tethers it to his hand with bungee gum. After Hisoka eliminates number 3, Killua asks the referee for clarifications regarding the back freebie, determining they must take Razor out last. However, they lose the ball when number 6 and number 7 merge into number 13. Bracing for Razor's throw, Killua, Gon, and Bisky activate Ken. Gon is blasted off the court by the throw, but mostly unscathed. Killua realizes he won't budge from his decision to call back. He and Inu repeatedly pass the ball to each other to allow Gon to get first aid until Inu throws it at Razor to redeem himself. Razor is, however, saved by his devils and knocks Inu out, also dispelling Black Inu. Killua avoids his next throw, which curves towards his 2 remaining. In the aftermath, Bisky's forced to leave the curve and Hisoka breaks 2 fingers. Although he manages to secure the ball, Killua realizes that if he had dodged left instead of right, he would have died. When Gon re-enters play, Killua points out that they won't get hurt if they're hit by anyone but Razor, but Gon declares that it won't be a true victory if they don't catch the Game Master's throw. Killua argues with him, only to be won over when Gon reminds him that he would be dead if he had dodged to the other side. To get back at Razor, he has Killua hold the ball for him while he charges Rock. Killua's hands are mangled by the first 2 throws, which allows their team to take out number 13, as well as to force Razor to use up his freebie. Tezugeta divines the state he's in and offers to take his place. Killua refuses and claims he's fine, but Bisky forces him to pull his hand out of his pocket, exposing the grievous injuries he suffered. Killua requests that Gon let him continue, and his friend reveals he's aware of Killua's injuries, but adjoins Killua is the only one who can hold the ball for him. The latter reminds Gon that before he can do so again, they must get the ball back from Razor. Gon comes up with a formation in which Killua serves as both cushion and brakes, redistributing his aura with impeccable precision. The 3 manage to block Razor's spike, then Killua holds up the ball for Gon, promising that if he holds back, he'll hear it from him. Gon fires the most powerful throw yet, which Razor bumps back at him, only for Hisoka to redirect it once again. With bungee gum, he sticks the ball to Razor's arm, pushing him out of bounds. After their victory, Bisky tends to Killua's hands and chastises him, while Killua glances at Gon as he and Razor talk about Jin. The NPC who started the quest takes the team to the top of the lighthouse and, at dawn, transforms into plot of beach. Inu Tezugeta gladly let Gon's team take the original. Hisoka's parting words to them lead Killua to realize that he was indeed hiding something and that he lied to them about not knowing about spell cards. Bisky pacifies him by saying that certain people lie without reason. Right as Tezugeta and Inu propose forming an alliance to defeat the bombers, Genthru contacts the jackpot hunter. Believing him to be the original plot of Beach, he threatens to kill him if he doesn't hand over the card within an hour. Tezugeta volunteers to ward off the bombers off for up to 1 week, a deadline by which Killua doubts they can come up with a proper strategy, and for 3 in return for Wild Alexandrite. The deal's accepted, and Killua is put in charge of planning. The 3 relocate to the Badlands, where Killua watches Gon train and inquires about Bisky's ability, fighting with her over its usefulness. 10 days later, Killua notes that Gon's made no progress in emission training. and begins to wonder if the trade they made with Tsezugeta was unwise since his team would be 2 cards away from completion after they give them the card. Bisky suggests taking Genthru's card, but Killua knows Gon would not agree to it. He examines the boulder dug by Bisky, declaring it to be big enough for his plan. After 5 more days, he and Bisky tell Gon to stop his emission training since he's made no progress. They convert the boulder into a card and share their strategy with Gon, for which they have him hone his sense of timing. To their surprise, Tsezugeta holds out for 5 more days after the deadline. Even by that time, however, Killua's hands haven't healed. The 3 are contacted by Gota Inu, who tells them that the Jackpot Hunters team is not coming back and that he's in possession of all their real cards. He warns them the bombers are flying towards Masadora to restock on transport spells, after which they'll probably come for them. Soon after, the bombers transport to Gon's team, who pretend to be taken by surprise. They refuse to hand over their cards and flee to make the bombers use up their movement spells until they manage to lead them in a desired location. The 3 split up, with Sub targeting Killua. He engages Sub in close quarters combat, gauging their respective advantages, and proceeds to test his abilities and equipment. He uses Rhythm Echo to get close to Sub and shock him with Lightning Palm, which only stuns the bomber for a few moments. Killua thus pulls out one of his yo-yos. After a few swings, he allows himself to be disarmed by Sub, who falls for his fake-out and is hit by Killua's second yo-yo. After revealing that all his moves have been traps, Killua knocks Sub out. He restrains him and meets up with Bisky. They're contacted by Gon after he defeats Genthru, but can't understand what the boy is saying due to his crushed throat. When Genthru comes to, they have him get his binder out by stating they'd already planned to use Angel's Breath on every one of them. Bisky heals Gon and Bada, but when it's Killua's turn, she finds herself unable to clone the card. Killua deduces it's because Gota Inu's vouchers have transformed into Angel's Breath. The hunter reaches them but is unwilling to use Angel's Breath on the bombers. Killua inquires whether he would use it on him, and when Gota Inu replies he would do so for free, Killua reveals he killed more people than the bombers. Gon decides to respect their deal and activate the original Angel's Breath on Genthru, apologizing to Killua. This prompts Gota Inu to hand them his own, as well as all his and Team Tsezugeta's cards. Killua's hands are healed, and he, Gon, and Bisky receive 1 billion each as a result of Batara rescinding the contract. When Gon places all 99 specified slot cards in his binder, an announcement goes off that alerts every player of a quiz test, the prize being the elusive Ruler's Blessing. Killua reckons it to be the measure that penalizes players who stole most of the cards, and that, since the bombers are out of commission and Tsezugeta's team has left the game, they stand a good chance to win the card. Multiple players teleport to the group's location, but only to offer them a deal. Gon gives the most exact responses and receives Ruler's invitation. Gasha and Zet's Bellum attack him to get the card, but Gon's team easily defeats them. Killua then drifts to Limero so that Gon and Bisky can fly there too. After a majestic party, Gon, Killua, and Bisky pick the 3 cards to take outside of the game. The next morning, they leave Greed Island with Blue Planet, Paladin's Necklace, and Plot of Beach. Gon converts Paladin's Necklace to revert Plot of Beach into a company, which he had previously transformed with Clone, after finding out that the first contact on his list was not Gota Inu, the person to enter the game after him, but an anagram of Jin. He proclaims the first thing he'll do after meeting his father is introduce Killua as his best friend, to the latter's embarrassment and moving Bisky to tears. They greet her before casting a company, which takes Gon and Killua to Kite in Kakin. Chimera Ant Arc. Kite explains to Gon he's been on Greed Island on Jin's request, and that Gon's use of a company instead of magnetic force caused him to meet Kite and not Jin, who wanted to make sure Gon and him would be alone if they were to meet. They have dinner together around a campfire. The next day, Kite introduces Gon and Killua to his group of fellow researchers. Monta and Banana recognize Killua's surname, although he explains he quit his profession as an assassin. Alongside Kite's team, Gon and Killua work as biological researchers for 1 month, finding a great number of new species thanks to their affinity with nature. When they turn in the results to Wong, they're told about a giant insect limb. They fly to the Southern Peace auction house to investigate. The field research is unsuccessful, but Podongo discovers the limb came from a man-sized Chimera Ant queen, an insect that devours other animals and then gives birth to progeny that inherit the characteristics of the different species it's eaten. Killua states that a Chimera Ant queen of that size could prey on humans. After researching the currents, Kite bets that the Chimera Ant Queen might have washed onto an anarcho-primitivist, autonomous nation called Neo-Green Life. Following his hunch, they head to NGL. Only Gon, Killua, Kite, Stick, and Podongo are able to cross NGL's border stop due to the country's strict rules. They rent horses and plan to search along the coastline, although Killua is suspicious of the information their translator guides feed them. After receiving an SOS message from Ponzu containing the location of the nest, Kite, Gon, and Killua rush to help. They cross a deserted village. Gon finds animal carcasses impaled by Ramot, who beats him and Killua back. Kite tests them by making them fight the Chimera Ant. Gon and Killua tag team to beat him, and after Killua paralyzes him, Gon lands the near-fatal blow, but Ramot is saved by his squadron leader, Colt. Kite warns the two boys they'll see much carnage, but they're willing to continue nonetheless. The trio discovers the hidden side of the NGL, a narcotics factory once commandeered by the former kingpin of the country, Gyro. Once inside, Kite senses 5 presences approaching, causing Killua to realize he's using N. Yunju, Centipede, and Mosquito attack them. Killua faces off the latter, severing her arm when she comes within range. She retorts by ejecting a stinger from her mouth, which Killua dodges only to fall prey to her real poisonous stinger, located at the tip of her tail. He pretends to be affected by the toxin and, as soon as she looks away, breaks her neck and slashes off her head. Remember, Killua isn't affected by poisons. Alright? Silly Chimera Ant. The trio discuss their Nen abilities and advance further in Chimera Ant territory. They find themselves surrounded by the officers of Hagya's squad. Killua loses to Gon at rock, paper, scissors, so he goes second. He's initially concerned by Bato's attacks, but smiles when Gon reveals his true power. He then steps in himself, fighting Rhino and killing him easily. Kite then activates his crazy slots, summoning a scythe. Gon and Killua sense its power and jump up as he decimates the officers with silent waltz. When he complains about the unreliability of his Nen ability, Killua wonders again why he made it so. That night, the trio spots Hidden, Flutter, and Hagya, who however withdraw without a fight. When they're within sight of the nest, they're located by Neferpito, who's upon them in an instant and cuts off Kite's arm. The two boys are momentarily overwhelmed by their ominous aura, but when Gon prepares to fight the Royal Guard, Killua knocks him unconscious and runs away with him, regretting their arrogance and weakness. He stops only when he returns to the checkpoint between NGL and the Republic of Rocario, where he updates Spinner and encounters the official extermination team formed by Chairman Netero, Moral, and Nov. The Sea Hunter berates him, while Nov dismisses his assessment that Neferpito was stronger than even the 3 of them. Killua understands he's not even in their playing field and is surprised when Netero hands him 2 halves of 2 tokens, stating that if he and Gon want to join them and continue living as hunters, they must hold on to them for 1 month. Killua takes Gon to a hotel and waits for him to wake up, guilt eating away at him for deserting Kite. When Gon comes to, however, he thanks him, believing he would have been a hindrance to Kite had he fought, and claiming that the hunter is still alive and needs them to rescue him. Killua is awed by Gon's capacity for hope. They resolve to get stronger and write on the city's bulletin board that they accept the challenge. They encounter Nov's eerie student, Palm Siberia, who tells them they have 1 month to defeat Moral's 2 disciples, Knuckle and Shoot. Each pair has 2 halves of a token, and to pass the challenge, the pair must acquire their opponent's 2 halves. Killua scouts Knuckle as he proclaims he's ready to fight with a megaphone, determining he's strong. He plans to improve their basics and find out their opponent's abilities. Gon disagrees with the latter proposition since they'll have no such knowledge in NGL. They go back to their hotel where they find Bisky waiting for them. She trains them to maintain a state of Ren for 3 hours, which will increase their stamina within battle. Less than 1 hour later, Gon collapses a few seconds before Killua, and they instantly fall asleep. Bisky uses her ability to reduce their fatigue. After about 10 days, Gon and Killua succeed in the task. Despite their exhaustion, Bisky sends them to confront Knuckle without their tokens, so they'll be able to fight him again if they lose. The Beast Hunter's superiority is clear to all 3 of them even before they clash. He orders them to punch him as much as they want, and if they fail to make him budge from his spot, they'll have to leave their tokens behind. When he thanks Gon moments before fainting from his rock, Killua judges him to be an idiot. They take him to their hotel room and, when he comes to, inquire about his motives for joining the extermination team. His statement that he wants to know who they're up against before killing them causes Killua to think he would die before finding out. The next morning, the 3 share breakfast, and Knuckle allows Gon and Killua to challenge him as many times as they want in the remaining 20 days. The boys spend the rest of the month training themselves by maintaining Ren for 3 hours and subsequently heading off to challenge Knuckle, but they can't draw out so much as half of his might. 10 days before the deadline, Gon wonders why Knuckle isn't allowed to go to NGL despite his power, with Killua speculating it's because of his personality. Palm realizes they're not progressing fast enough and recommends they run away so her anger won't be as terrible, but Gon promises they'll win and manages to calm her down. 2 nights before the deadline, Bisky allows Gon and Killua to challenge Knuckle after resting. Gon takes Knuckle on by himself while Killua watches from the sidelines. He's impressed with the speed with which Gon improves in combat, turning Zhazhanken's long wind-up to his advantage and minimizing the damage suffered by expanding his aura's area of defense. However, he notes that his friend is approaching the limit of his stamina. He's shocked to see Gon charge a Zhazhanken attack from a distance. Gon fires Paper at Knuckle, and through round 2, he swiftly prepares Rock while moving behind him for a pincer attack. However, he exhausts his aura before being able to land a decisive blow. Instead of fighting Knuckle himself, Killua takes Gon back to the hotel, warning Knuckle that he will never forgive him if the following day he will lose for not using his full power. As soon as he returns, Bisky immediately tells him to spar with her. She exposes his habit of fighting to run away if he reckons his opponent is stronger than him, always assuming the worst case scenario. She orders him to leave Gon's side if he can't defeat Shoot. At midnight, the two boys meet up with their opponents. Gon takes on Knuckle while Killua and Shoot relocate elsewhere. Killua musters up his courage by thinking that Shoot doesn't know his ability either. His opponent reveals a birdcage and 3 floating hands. He checks for traps with Gyo and concludes that Shoot is a manipulator. He repels the hands with his yo-yos when Shoot suddenly appears next to him. Instead of dodging, he tries to electrocute him, but Illumi's conditioning causes his body to freeze, allowing Shoot to land a blow on him. He begins to down himself, and after a few instants, his left eye disappears due to the effect of Hotel Rafflesia. He manages to avoid Shoot's next 2 attacks while chiding himself for only running away. Screaming, he discards his yo-yos and charges at Shoot, batting away his floating hands. Shoot sees electricity crackling around one of them and jumps back, remarking that he doesn't care for it. Unable to understand how his opponents know about his ability, Killua finds himself unable to keep fighting and gives up. In the morning, Killua and a defeated Gon accompany Knuckle and Shoot to the border with NGL. After they're gone, Gon breaks down in tears, lamenting his weakness. Killua tears up by his side, vowing to watch over him for the 30 days in which he will be unable to use Nen due to Knuckles' Hakaware, after which he wants to part ways with him. On the way back to Doli City, Spinner tells them about the small-billed swans from her hometown. As they prepare to enter the hotel, Killua realizes that the first person he will have to protect Gon from is Palm. He's outraged by Palm's demand that Gon do whatever she says to make up for breaking his promise of taking her to NGL, and even more by her request to be his girlfriend. So weird. So weird. After Gon manages to pacify her, the two head to the gym to train, and Killua compliments his ability to deal with her. Gon reveals he has experience with women, shocking his friend. Just as Killua catches himself losing his determination to leave Gon's side, Knuckle calls Gon to tell him they found Kite and will be back in 3 days. Relieved, Killua thinks that all that's left is for him to guard Gon for 1 month. He accompanies Gon to the woods next to the city as he makes preparations for his date with Palm. Back at the hotel, he learns from the news of a Chimera Ant attack on Pata City, deeming the threat to be sufficiently far from them. He lies to Gon, claiming the following day he will work out at the gym all day, whereas in reality, he disguises himself and follows him and Palm around. When they head into the woods, Killua senses the aura of a Chimera Ant. Fearing that Gon will attack it in rage or that Palm will start screaming at him, he decides to confront it himself. He leads the ant, who turns out to be Ramot, upwind and away from the two. When he prepares for combat, however, he finds himself paralyzed by Illumi's conditioning. Unable to react properly but unwilling to flee, Killua suffers a beatdown at Ramot's hands, while trying to resist his brother's influence. When his resolve reaches its apex, right before Ramot is about to land a lethal blow, Killua senses a needle in his skull and pulls it out, dodging the attack with surprising speed. He realizes that the needle was the source of Illumi's influence on him. He orders Ramot to tell the other Chimera Ants that he will be killed if they get near him or Gon. When Ramot begins to utter a protest, Killua tears off his head and crushes it. He rushes back to where he last saw Gon and Palm, and when he can't find them, runs to the hotel. There, he finds Palm make Gon write apologies over and over. Killua and Palm begin to fight. She tries to stab him in the head with a kitchen knife, but he easily dodges it. Why are you even trying, girl? He takes Gon and runs away, followed by a murderous Palm. He's astonished that even after that exchange, Gon believes he can reason with her. Gon and Killua hang together for the next 2 days, during which, unbeknownst to them, they're monitored by Shoot. The extermination team members then come together, and Shoot frees Kite from his birdcage, returning him to his normal size. Killua watches silently as Gon allows himself to be beaten by the manipulated hunter. When the second level of Neferpito's control is activated, Gon swears to Killua he will take the Royal Guard on himself. Knuckle asks Killua what caused the two of them to change that much in such a short span of time, to which Killua replies it's the Chimera Ants that changed them. Under the guise of the former king of the Republic of East Gorto, Merom initiates the process of forcibly awakening Nen in the civilians of East Gorto, resulting in the deaths of millions, in order to form his own personal army to conquer the world. Through Cult, the extermination team learns that the selection will take place in 10 days. Killua is concerned about Netero's silence, and just then he texts them the plan. When, after midnight, Gon reacquires the ability to use Nen, Moral demands that he strike him with rock. Gon's fury manifests in the form of tremendous aura output, and Killua calmly stops him before he can carry through with the attack. As per their request, the two of them are assigned to taking care of Neferpito. Due to East Gorto's spy system, Gon and Killua are forced to infiltrate the country while keeping out of the sight of civilians. Upon crossing the border, they find out a massacre has taken place in an abandoned village near the border, which prompts Killua to deduce the selection has already begun. Gon decides to attempt to stop it, even if it means being discovered. Killua tells him he will do it by himself and that Gon should save his strength for Pito. He orders him to remain hidden no matter how many people he sees being murdered. He apologizes for lashing out, confessing he's on edge. He feels Melioran's gaze upon himself, but he and Gon split up anyway. Killua proceeds to take out Pito's puppets and warn the people of East Gorto that Ming Jolik has fallen. To make his moves unpredictable, he continues inciting riots while moving to the southeast until an ominous feeling makes him change direction. Because of his actions, the Ants put the country under martial law, but Killua is undeterred. Ming's reappearance on television forces Killua to abandon his plan to incite riots and limit himself to taking out Pito's puppets. After dispatching a platoon in Luanton, he heads north where he runs into an ambush prepared by Leol. He dives into the nearby jungle to lure in Flutter, who's flying too high for him to reach, but is attacked by the unit captained by a bombardier dung beetle Chimera Ant. He manages to kill most of his underlings, but the captain blasts him off with explosive chemicals, which causes Killua to realize Flutter is still observing him. Suddenly, he's shot with several fleas secreting an anticoagulant. With Ken, he manages to figure out the location of the sniper, whom he tails to the entrance of a cave. As soon as the man jumps in, Killua leaps after him and jams his finger into his head. Tentacles emerge from the man's body to restrain him, but he cuts them off and uses the suckers to adhere to the stalactites, preventing himself from falling into the ant-infested lake underneath. Ikalgo, the Chimera Ant captain who is controlling the man's body, attempts to escape, but Killua easily catches him and interrogates him about Flutter's ability, offering to spare him. Ikalgo attempts to commit suicide by letting himself fall in the lake underneath, but Killua, moved by his loyalty to his comrades, saves him with a yo-yo and flings him to safety. At that moment, a shark-like Chimera Ant jumps out of the water in an attempt to crush him, only to be swiftly torn to pieces by the boy. Without noticing, Remora manages to affix a pin to his clothes that was conjured by the Ortho siblings. Once ashore, Killua is stabbed by multiple fish darts that seem to come out of nowhere. As the Ortho siblings taunt him telepathically, Killua realizes their ability is connected to darts, which don't exist until the moment they pierce his skin, making them unavoidable. Killua gets severely injured from the darts as they pierce him through every part of his body and suffers from extreme blood loss as he counts down the points. When the final throw comes, which should pierce his forehead, Killua converts his aura into electricity to enhance his reactions and manages to block it. He then breaks off the tip and sticks it to his forehead with a suction cup. He fakes his death by lying still on the ground and waits for the siblings to come out, beheading them when they emerge from underwater. As he tries to leave the cave, he collapses from blood loss. On the verge of losing consciousness, he apologizes to Gon, but Ikalgo saves him by taking him to an underground clinic. He wakes up in the underground clinic 2 days later where the nurse annoys him to pay his expensive hospital bill. He phones home to pay the hospital bill and be discharged. He invites Ikalgo to join the extermination team, who's touched by Killua's actions as he considers an octopus like him as a friend, and decides to go with him. Killua and Ikalgo meet up with Gon, Knuckles, Shoot, and Melioran and revise their strategies for infiltration. Killua dismisses Gon's concern about Palm. Despite the plan being laid out on paper, he continues to feel anxious. 19 hours before the attack, he does a run-through with Gon and Ikalgo, during which he suggests working on measures to deal with any unforeseen contingencies, no matter how unlikely. To figure out why Pito deactivated their N, they phone Cult, who tells them the Royal Guard must have been healing someone. Their conclusion is that the king hurt himself, which they relay to Moral. At 6 p.m., the three slip into one of the batteries marching from Peijin to the Royal Palace, and from there into Nov's dimension. As the extermination team members prepare themselves for the attack, Killua glances at Gon, vowing to make sure that no one will interfere with his battle thanks to his new ability, Godspeed. 5.5 hours later, the extermination team leaves the room to move into one closer to the palace. They all convene to charge in from the exit connected to the central stairway. 7 minutes before midnight, Killua begins to argue with Ikalgo again about unexpected scenarios, one of which leads the group to consider the possibility that Palm has become the king's concubine. Although he tells Gon to focus only on his battle, he can't assuage his unease and brings up the topic of the king's self-inflicted injury again. Moral's conclusion leaves him unconvinced, but with the raid starting in a minute, he's forced to brush his misgivings aside. 6 seconds before go time, he senses Gon's cold single-mindedness. At midnight sharp, Killua is the 5th to storm the palace, appearing next to the stairway and Mentha Thuyupi. As Killua anticipated, the royal guards have different positions than expected. The extermination team freezes momentarily when Zeno's dragon dive pierces the palace with the exception of Gon, who charges at Yuppie. Killua quickly deduces his friend is acting on a scenario in which Melioran and Knuckle were killed by Zeno's ability while undetectable. To the team's relief, they see the royal guard being pushed aside by an invisible force, signaling that their comrades survived. Gon and Killua attempt to rush past them on the stairs, but in an instant of hesitation caused by the reappearance of Pito's N, Yuppie destroys them. Surviving the strike unscathed, the two change direction and decide to leap from the 2nd to the 3rd floor from outside. They run past Ikalgo and Killua glimpses 2 soldier ants. Subconsciously realizing they might pose a threat to the approaching Ikalgo, he dispatches them before even understanding what he's doing. Ikalgo's declaration that he's in his debt manages to calm his swirling emotions, and the boy reaches Gon just as Zeno is about to relocate Netero and Meruem. Gon tells him where Pito is, and his words leave Killua wondering whether he was speaking only for himself or for the both of them. Fearing the answer, he doesn't ask. They jump to the roof of the 3rd floor where they encounter Zeno, who cryptically tells them to judge for himself what's going on inside. Killua follows Gon into the room where Pito crouches over Komugi, Dr. Blythe hovering above them. As Gon rages, Killua notes that Pito is not preparing for battle, which leads him to conclude that he's protecting and healing the girl, the contingency neither the extermination team nor Zeno was prepared for, and the reason the king injured himself. He's reticent to tell Gon, but Pito themselves states they're healing her. They offer to do anything if they let them finish, but before Killua can formulate his request, Gon cuts him off. Killua stops his friend when he's about to attack the royal guard. His cold remark hurts him, but he manages to talk him into restraining himself. Gon decides to wait for 1 hour, after which he will take Pito to restore Kite. He is pulled into Melioran's god accomplice, and the two move elsewhere so the former squadron leader can update them. Killua agrees to assist Knuckle against Yuppie. Exploiting Melioran's invisibility, he manages to paralyze Yuppie with Thunderbolt right when he's about to kill Knuckle, allowing the Beast Hunter to survive and strike his opponent several times before running away. He then appears in front of Yuppie and vents his frustration by beating him up with Whirlwind. When he runs out of electric aura, he backs away to recharge. Yuppie pursues him, but Killua escapes thanks to Melioran's ability. Killua finds a plug and starts recharging his electric supply. He states he'll go back to where Gon is once he's done and instructs Melioran to discuss what to do next with Knuckle. Once he's finished, he starts heading back but senses someone watching him. He discovers it's Palm, who's been mutated into a Chimera Ant. Reflecting that seeing her like that could lead Gon to a mental breakdown, he steps out of hiding to intercept her. Pondering that perhaps she came to him thanks to her clairvoyance and thus remembers him, he starts to believe she might still be the same. The two exchange a few words, but when Palm asks where Gon is, he becomes wary of her, ultimately calling her an enemy and preparing to fight her. She activates Black Widow and immediately smashes one of his yo-yos. Killua is forced on the defensive by her sheer power. As he defends himself, he asks Palm why she wants to meet Gon, stating that depending on her answer, he might tell her, as Gon's mind risks to shatter. Although at first he had no intention of letting the two meet, he ends up bursting in tears, lamenting his inability to help his friend. Palm manages to recover her senses and destroy Poof's clone, who is ordering her to kill Killua. She relieves his emotional pain, telling him it's thanks to his words she freed herself from the ant's control, and that he's the only one who can really help Gon. Palm and Killua reunite with Ikalgo, announcing their intention to stay by Gon's side without interfering with him. Ikalgo accepts, and the three go find Melioran and Knuckle. Killua and Knuckle go to the room where Gon and Komugi are, and the boy entrusts them with Komugi until he and the royal guard return. After they leave, Knuckle inquires whether Killua would not like to go with him, to which the boy responds that Pito might take him hostage. Thanks to Palm's clairvoyance, the extermination team discovers that the king has survived his fight with Netero. Killua takes Komugi while Palm opens the underground hangar in an attempt to figure out if Poof's target is Komugi or Melioran. The Royal Guard's clone goes after Killua, who, however, dodges him with Godspeed. Poof splits up his clone in smaller segments, who promises Killua that the king will forgive him if he surrenders. Killua, of course, doesn't believe him and continues running further away from the palace until Komagi begins to struggle to get free. Killua barely manages to save both of them when the segments reunite again and attempts to kill the girl. He knocks her out and draws a circle around himself with his aura. When the clone attempts to cross it, Killua burns its cells with electricity. Shortly afterward, the segments fly back towards the palace. Minutes later, Palm finds Killua and tells him that Gon and Pito have reached Peijin. At his request, she explains her ability to him. He thanks her without telling her why, to her confusion. Suddenly, Palm is shocked to see that Pito is healing themselves while Gon is unresponsive. A segment of Poof informs them that Pito believes that Komagi has been rescued and offers to stop the Royal Guard from killing Gon if they give him Komagi. Without hesitation, Killua torches the segment and entrusts Komagi to Palm. Activating Speed of Lightning, he rushes to go inside. As he approaches the hideout, he feels an incredible aura. It takes him a few moments, but he recognizes that it's Gon in his adult form. As his friend stands next to a decapitated Pito, Killua is horrified, fathoming the price Gon will have to pay for that power-up. When Terpsichore manipulates the Royal Guard's corpse, Killua intervenes just in time to prevent Gon from being killed. Although his friend still loses his right arm, Gon tells Killua that he's not in pain, but happy for looking like Kite did before his death, saddening his friend. Despite his protests, Gon musters even more aura to deliver the final blow to the Chimera Ant. Palm later sees Killua carrying an unconscious Gon. Gon is taken to the hospital in Swardani City, where Moral and Shoot are also recovering. While his friend is in a deep coma and his condition deteriorates each passing minute, Killua sits outside of the room, looking at him through a window. He thinks back to how Gon cut him out during the raid and swears to make him apologize. Nov arrives and tells him he's preparing a team of doctors, to which Killua responds he will save Gon himself and leaves the hospital, making a phone call. 13th Hunter Chairman Election Arc. Killua returns home to seek help from his younger sibling Alluka, whose ability would save Gon from death. Silva is initially reticent to let him meet with her and tells him not to think of her as family, which ticks him off. He declares that letting his friend die is the same as betraying him, reminding his father of the promise they made. Silva takes him to the room where Alluka is confined, updating him on recent wishes and demanding that he repeat the rules to her power. Killua's temper flares, but he eventually complies and is allowed to meet with his sister. Alluka rejoices at seeing him, while Killua apologizes for going away. They begin to play, with Alluka making the request instead of her other half, and the source of her power is Nanika. After he fulfills 3 of her requests, Killua picks her up and, hiding her face from the camera, demands to leave. Silva's refusal confirms that his family is unaware of the special rules, one of which is that Nanika must be in contact with someone to heal them. Killua calls out Nanika and requests that if they're not able to leave the mountain together within 30 minutes, Nanika should kill their mother. Silva opens the gate and allows them to depart. He calls Knuckle, whose phone is snatched by Moral. He's updated on Gon's state, after which he confidently states he can heal Gon, but that he may need help to return to the hospital. The conversation is cut off by Goto, who warns Killua he mustn't divulge in family secrets and informing that his outing precaution level is already 4, forbidding him from speaking to outsiders without clearance. Goto is assigned to be his escort, to which he adds Canary so she can take delicate care of Alluka. Silva orders that Tsubone and Amane accompany him as well, leading Killua to realize the seriousness of his situation. Nanika makes a request of Tsubone, who, after giving it her pinky fingernail, goes into hiding, preventing it from asking favors of anyone else and thus potentially from healing Gon, although Killua can still issue a command. On their way to the hospital, Killua is called by Leorio. Goto answers the phone, which triggers a heated argument between the two. Killua offers to talk to him briefly to simplify the conversation, which Goto authorizes. Leorio deems the conditions set by Goto to be impossible, but Moral promises to take care of it, planning to build a hospital wing in the parking lot just for Gon where Killua can drive in and heal Gon without being seen. As he follows the 4th round of the election for the 13th Hunter Chairman, he's surprised to see Leorio punch Jin with his ability in front of the whole audience, and also by placing 3rd in the same round. His phone rings again, and when Goto picks it up, he greets Illumi, calling him by name, which allows Killua to see Amane tensing up. He thus realizes how each family member feels towards Alluka and determines that Illumi's agenda goes against his father's, meaning that he wants to kill their sister. He concludes there's an intra-family mission where each Zoldyck tries to accomplish their goal, provided they don't kill each other, and that Alluka, whom Silva defined as not being family, is instead a viable target for assassination. Killua announces he removed Illumi's needle and challenges him. Right then, a car and a truck driven by people controlled by Illumi push Killua's car off the mountainside, but all the occupants escape uninjured. Killua discovers his brother's position thanks to Hisoka purposefully triggering his bloodlust. He carries Alluka as the three butlers and he run into the thick of the forest to escape him. Killua is suspicious of Amane, who assures him that she and her grandmother Subone are not his enemies, and neither are his father and grandfather, who tasked the two of them with keeping him safe. Stopping in his tracks, Killua counters that as long as Alluka's safety is not one of their priorities too, they will remain his enemies. He activates Godspeed to run away with Alluka. When he's sufficiently far from them, he rescinds the ability. Alluka asks him if he's just a hindrance to him, and a cause of attrition between him and the rest of the family. Killua asks her back whether she would be sad if he were the only person who loved her, which makes her elated. He reassures her and promises that they'll always be together. Feeling someone's gaze on him, he resumes running. 40 kilometers away from Prasta, Killua and Alluka come across a paved road. Killua reactivates Speed of Lightning. Minutes later, he sees Amane and Canary gaining on him from behind as they ride a transformed Subone. He leaps into the underlying woods, planning to reach Prasta's airport to contact Moral from aboard a blimp, but finds Amane and Canary awaiting him there. At Killua's suggestion, the two butlers set up 8 blimps. While Canary distracts Amane, he boards one with Alluka, from which he contacts Moral, giving him more details about his situation and Nanika's powers. Reckoning Illumi will use Needle People to counter his decoys, he proposes setting Teradine neutral, Bushidora Ambitious, and Lope Highland, the 3 representatives of the anti-Netero faction in the Hunter Association, against his brother due to him violating the 4th article of the Hunter bylaws. Moral is confident they would go along with it to garner more votes, although he recommends they only go after the Needle People. The anti-Netero faction thus targets Illumi. Disappearing above the clouds, Killua advances towards Swardani City. When they clear, he tries to contact Goto to no avail, so he phones Canary, asking her to tell Hashita to send out cars to 3 locations as well as one near the hospital where Gon is, confident that they've shaken Illumi off. Killua and Alluka land where Hashita is waiting with a car. Killua tells Hashita to drive them to the hospital, but suddenly Needle People appear and surround their car. Befuddled, Killua orders Hashita to continue driving even if he should run them down, but the butler replies that he can't do so unless Illumi tells him, revealing 2 needles embedded in his forehead. Illumi then emerges from the dark woods. Killua is unable to understand how Illumi found them, so the latter proposes to tell him if he hands Alluka over, which Killua refuses to do. As he ponders how to escape without using Godspeed, which might hurt Alluka, Subone reveals herself. She guesses that Miliki must be transmitting information to Illumi through the video feed from her monocle, which she was unable to remove due to Kikyo's orders. Alluka makes 2 more requests of Subone, which are promptly fulfilled, with Subone offering to let Killua make a wish to pay the price with Amane. Illumi states that if Killua can let the 2 butlers die, he should have no problem letting countless strangers suffer the same fate after he heals Gon, and adds that since Nanika is not a member of the family, it can be used to kill another Zoldyck. Killua uses the wish to heal Subone's hand instead, asserting that there are no malicious demands after a healing wish. He warns Illumi that if he keeps referring to Alluka as an object, he'll disown him as his brother. Satisfied, Illumi retreats, albeit still convinced that Killua is hiding some rules, since he supposedly made 2 wishes in a row. Killua thinks that if he told him the truth, the whole family would be happy to manipulate him again. Killua puts a sleeping Alluka in the car, and Amane drives them to the hospital. When they reach Gon's room, Killua waits for Alluka to wake up under the careful watch of Subone and Amane. After she awakens, Killua tells her that his friend is sick and wants to make him feel better. Alluka responds by expressing disappointment towards having to turn into Nanika again and complains that she never gets to spend time with him. To which Killua responds they'll always be together afterwards, while thinking that once the wish is granted, he will ask Nanika to never come out again. Alluka goes into her wish-granting mode to heal Gon, and Killua asks Nanika to restore Gon back to normal. Releasing a tremendous amount of power, she complies. Gon is successfully healed, although Killua doesn't tell him he was the one to save him. While their other friends take him to see Leorio, Killua waits for Illumi in the hospital while Alluka sleeps. Illumi deduces that on top of making wishes, Killua is able to give orders to Nanika without fulfilling any requests. Declaring himself the person most capable to handle that power, Illumi lets him choose between keeping Alluka locked away forever or allowing him to manipulate the 2 of them. Killua uses Nanika to teleport him home, and asks Subone and Amane to leave him alone with Nanika lest he issues another command. Nanika asks Killua for a pat on the head, but he tells it not to come out anymore. Nanika seems not to understand, repeating that it likes Killua. When he demands it again more forcefully, Nanika, crying, retreats into Alluka. When his sister wakes up, however, she becomes furious with Killua and makes him understand that Nanika is a part of her. Killua apologizes to Nanika, admitting that he was still afraid of Illumi and swearing to protect both Alluka and Nanika. The three make up, after which Tsubone informs him that he's been released from his precautionary level. Killua and Alluka accompany Gon to the World Tree, where he's due to mate with his father. Killua makes a jab at Gon for his coldness during the palace invasion, but declares himself satisfied with his apology. He informs Gon that Nanika was the one who healed him. When asked why he wasn't told sooner, Killua responds that it's complicated and that because of her powers, Alluka was kept locked up. He declines the offer to climb the World Tree with Gon, as he will travel the world with his sister. She assures Gon that once she's had Killua to herself for a while, she'll let Killua play with Gon again. Killua retorts he's the one doing the favor, lightheartedly adjoining that she is what Gon is coming second to. Promising to keep in touch and to stay friends no matter what, Killua tells Gon to send his regards to Jin for him, and the two part ways. Not long afterwards, Killua and Alluka watch a video sent to them by Gon of a flock of small-billed swans taking flight. Succession Contest Arc. Killua has a phone conversation with Kurapika in which, after being told about Kurapika's project of having trusted hunters get close to the princes as bodyguards, he recommends Bisky. He also warns Kurapika that if they get into a fight, as it's likely, the best way to calm and manipulate Bisky is to flatter her. Although he found it so disgusting, he never could bring himself to do it.
Abilities. Killua has all the benefits granted by his status as a hunter. Furthermore, as a member of the Zoldyck family, he has vast wealth at his disposal, although he needs his father's or grandfather's permission to use them. His family name alone is enough to scare the ones that know what it's associated with. Killua has been trained since birth to become a human weapon and is recognized by his family to be the most talented assassin in the entire history of the Zoldicks. When he took the hunter exam the first time, he was the fourth most powerful applicant, after Githeraker and by his own admission, Hisoka and Hanzo, although the latter was without entering his assassin mode, and the one that Satots believed would pass. Up until the hunter exam, he did not hesitate a second to kill, but after meeting Gon, this tendency subsided. Still, he's not afraid to resort to extreme means when circumstances demand it. Like his friend Gon, Killua has an astounding natural talent that enables him to learn at a fast race and allegedly ad infinitum, a characteristic that piqued Hisoka's interest. His potential extends to Nen as well, as noted by Wing and Bisky. Although he primarily fights with his bare hands, Killua is able to use any kind of weapons, but the only one he employs consistently are his custom-made yo-yos. When he tried to prevent the selection, he was so confident in his strength that he claimed that tanks and fighter jets would be useless against him. And in fact, he was able to effortlessly subdue a military unit comprised of at least 4 tanks. His training endowed him with near immunity to poison, high tolerance to electricity, great agility and physical strength, advanced armed and unarmed combat and stealth techniques, which he acquired at a very young age. He can also drive cars and airships. His intellect and exceptional analytical skills are equally remarkable, and it's often through a strategy that he can defeat opponents who are stronger or more experienced than him. He's also able to walk without making a sound and sleep with a larger part of his brain awake than normal, so he can avoid attacks even in his sleep, even if they come from an armed, albeit weaker, fellow hunter. After leaving Greed Island, due to his prowess in Nen, Killua became able to blend with nature more easily, which allowed him to find multiple new species of animals at a rate that astounded Kite's companions. Killua's main weakness used to be an inferiority complex that paralyzed him with fear and prevented him from fighting opponents that could pose a threat to him, even if their overall strength was lower than his own. Although it was originally believed to be a product of his training, it's later revealed that it was actually due to a Nen-imbued needle that Illumi had planted in his brain. Its removal caused Killua to snap free of his brother's conditioning, thus regaining the full control of his mental capabilities in battle. This also had the effect of making his overall movements better, increasing his speed. Preternatural Perception. Killua has proven multiple times to be extremely perceptive, whether by gauging a person's approximate power or by detecting their aura or gaze. He first demonstrated this by sensing Hisoka's bloodlust while it was still subtle. He could tell at a glance that Machitani was not as strong as he pretended to be, and offered Gon an estimation of how he stacked up against Hisoka, Hanzo, and himself in terms of combat ability. He could also tell at a glance that Machi and Nobunaga were way out of his and Gon's league, unlike Leorio and Gon himself. His corollary that the stronger the opponent, the better they are at hiding their power turned out to be true, occasionally causing Killua to severely underestimate his adversary. However, as he honed his Nen abilities and guesses became more accurate, he notably sensed Netero's power, whereas he had downplayed it in the past. He is extremely aware of his surroundings, as he managed to detect Meleoron's presence in spite of the latter specializing in erasing it. He's also able to sense the gaze of others even if their aura is hidden. Enhanced strength. Killua has displayed his strength on several occasions. Before he learned Nen, he was able to open a 16-ton gate, and after he learned Nen, he opened the 64-ton gate. He can easily lift boulders several times his own weight and bisect massive trees with a single strike. He was able to rip off Ramet's head with one swift motion and crush it in his hand, as well as pierce the exoskeletons of 2 Chimera Ants with his bare hands and minimum aura expenditure. Immense speed and reflexes. Killua is extremely quick on his feet. He was able to pluck out Jones's heart without the serial killer noticing until he saw his own heart. However, his speed was no match for Finks, who could follow and anticipate his every movement. At the beginning of his training with Biscuit, he could run 70 kilometers in about 3 hours without breaking a sweat, unlike Gon. He was subsequently able to outrun Biscuit in her younger form once, although that might have been partly due to a difference in motivation. When he retried the Hunter exam, he knocked out a maximum of 1,488 applicants in less than 45 minutes. His speed being such that the few who managed to catch a glimpse of him only saw a shadow. Upon removing the needle, possibly due to becoming capable of devoting his full abilities to offense, Killua's speed increased to the point that he was able to cover the distance between himself and Ramet and sever the upset Chimera Ant's head without him being able to react, whereas previously Ramet managed to hold his own against both Killua and Gon at the same time. He was able to cut a massive tree in two and twist off the arms and head of another soldier ant in the blink of an eye, as well as to dispatch 2 more by inflicting 2 lethal wounds to each within a ridiculously short time frame. As impressive as Killua's attack and movement speed, if not even more so, are his reactions. He can dodge a bullet moving at extreme velocity even if it's fired within 57 centimeters of his body. Immense agility. Killua's mobility allows him to attack from every position, move in the enemy's blind spot, and fight on any kind of terrain. In terms of defense, Killua takes full advantage of his agility to jump out of reach or dodge enemy attacks without losing his foothold. He has an excellent sense of balance, as seen when he was shown standing with nonchalance on the back of a horse, and exceptional coordination. He managed to dispatch a small squadron of Chimera Ants that had drawn him in the treetops and surrounded him in a few seconds, not only avoiding their attacks, but also turning them against his assailants. Enhanced stamina. Killua was able to complete a long-distance run more than 80 kilometers long and taking place on uneven terrain such as ascending stairs and a swamp, and was the only non-user among the applicants not to exhibit the slightest sign of fatigue. He fought Binolt for 10 days straight while keeping his guard up even as he slept. Not even 30 hours of continuous traveling NGL by foot and battling the armed forces could wear him down significantly. Advanced durability. Killua was unscathed after being kicked in the belly by Imori. He also stated that a blow to the neck that Hanzo used to knock out Gon would only leave him stunned. Even being electrocuted with 1 million volts of electricity only causes him to feel pain, but doesn't cause physical damage. Far more remarkably, he held the ball for Gon 3 times while the latter punched it with rock, and despite the feat being compared to forming the barrel of a cannon with one's naked hands, he used no aura to protect them, although he suffered grievous injuries that he was unable to recover from in nearly a month. Enhanced endurance. Killua can bear very intense physical pain without his physical or mental abilities being impaired. An excellent example is provided by his confrontation with the Ortho siblings, in which he had his body punctured by several darts and still managed to make calculations and prepare a strategy, even coming up with an idea for a new ability. He fell asleep, or pretended to, while his brother Miraku was whipping him, and he didn't react when the latter burned him with a cigar. He can instantaneously dislodge his joints without seeming to suffer any drawback. Resistance to electricity. Killua has been trained to endure large amounts of electricity since he was a baby. As a result, he's able to withstand high voltage electrical currents while retaining his full mental and physical faculties, although he still feels the pain. He's unfazed by shocks capable of stunning Sub, a superior Nen user at the time, as well as by those capable of paralyzing and causing tremendous pain to the powerful Menthuthu. This form of training also allowed him to develop electricity-oriented Nen techniques. Immense poison resistance. Due to his assassin training, Killua became resistant to a great number of poisons, toxins, and chemicals. He first displayed this ability when he drank 5 cans of Tonpa's juice during the hunter exam without experiencing any side effects, despite the beverage containing a laxative that, in that dose, should have completely dehydrated him. When he was stung by Mosquito, he revealed that her toxin had absolutely no effect on his body. Muscle and joint control. Killua can dislodge his joints at will in less than a second. He demonstrated this ability by dislocating his shoulders, elbows, wrists, and fingers to free himself from Machi's strings. Claws. One of the several assassination arts passed down to Killua through his family consists in adjusting the anatomy of his hand. His fingernails turn into claws that are sharper than knives, with which Killua can tear humans apart as well as rip out a heart with frightening ease. He is capable of altering both hands at the same time. Healing factor. Killua can recover from injury faster than normal, as demonstrated when multiple wounds inflicted to him by the Ortho siblings healed completely in only 2 days. However, he was unable to recover from the extensive damage to his hands caused by Gon's rock even after 26 days. Genius level intellect. Killua's intelligence far exceeds that of any boy his age, and is exceptional also for adults. He's knowledgeable about a wide variety of topics and is endowed with prodigious intuition and analytical skills. His deductive abilities have allowed him to make accurate predictions on multiple occasions. He can also bear severe mental strain and still think clearly. To match all of these impressive intellectual capacities, Killua is also an extremely quick thinker who can adapt to completely unforeseen developments. Although he normally relies on logic, sometimes to a fault, he is capable of creative thought, which allowed him to devise the basics of Godspeed in the heart of combat. He's also tremendously observant, and he believed he could notice the slightest change in the expression of the 2 spiders. His terrific intellect allows him to pick up on details that would ordinarily go unnoticed on a subconscious level, which results in him feeling a sense of unease towards a certain course of action before realizing why. Master Strategist. Killua is capable of devising complex tactics as well as running accurate simulations and evaluating the success rate of each of them, even in the middle of a fight. His skills in evaluating the assets at his disposal and making the most of them are such that Gon and Biscuit were completely dependent on him to organize their Greed Island cards. Despite Knuckle being his senior, Killua also presided the strategic meeting before the invasion of the palace. Master Hand-to-Hand Combatant. In spite of his young age, Killua is an exceptional melee fighter and master of innumerable unarmed combat techniques. The difference in experience between assassination and a proper fight initially prevented him from making the most of them, but he soon improved to an astounding degree. He countered Sub's assault despite the latter having a superior output and his own hands being unusable. During their duel, he goaded Sub into striking him in a certain way by pretending to have an imperfect guard. His fighting style, which is extremely versatile, aims at dealing the maximum amount of damage in the shortest possible time, striking critical points and making ample use of lightning-fast submission holds to incapacitate or kill the opponent. He can knock out a person by striking a sensitive spot on their neck while moving at high speed, a feat which requires superhuman levels of precision. Killua is particularly skilled at finding patterns in the fighting style of his adversaries and at figuring out their weak spots, and using them to exploit or create openings. He rarely resorts to combos, preferring to land single critical strikes or to maintain a safe distance from more powerful opponents. After the removal of Illumi's needle, he became more assertive and prone to deadly blitzes, making the most of an opponent's distraction of vulnerability even if it means chasing them. Due to the Zoldyck philosophy of never putting their lives at risk while fighting, he was also taught a wide array of defensive and escape tactics. He seems to prefer to dodge attacks rather than block them, sometimes using the foe's charge to reposition himself in their blind spot, but he also has a solid guard. Assassin mode. Killua can enter a state of heightened concentration in which he focuses fully on killing the enemy, preventing himself from hesitating. According to him, there is a sensible difference between his power in this state and with his normal mindset. The Snake Awakens. Killua whips his arms with incredible fluidity and speed, cleaving anything that comes into contact with them. Master Weapon Specialist. Killua is capable of wielding a great number of weapons proficiently, as well as of turning any object into a lethal one. He won Bopobo's challenge by drenching him in liquor and setting it ablaze, and killed multiple soldier Chimera Ants with the arms they wielded. Killua is also adept at using projectile-type weapons, although he's never employed any in combat. His weapons of choice are 2 yo-yos weighing 50 kilograms each, which he can wield with great dexterity. Amazing pro hunter Shoot McMahon. He can use them as lightning-fast long-ranged weapons, as a grapple, or swing them around himself to counter incoming attacks. He can also use the environment to alter their trajectory, causing them to hit the target from their blind spots. His electric aura can also be channeled through them to shock a target from a distance. Killua is reluctant to use them in battle if he's unable to prevent the information from being leaked to other enemies, preferring to resort to his raw physical abilities and combat skills in order for his opponent to know as little about him as possible. Master of Stealth. Killua is very proficient in hiding, spying, and infiltration. Melody, a hunter renowned for her hearing, commented that she could hardly hear Killua's footsteps even when he was running alongside her. Silent Gait. Thanks to his training, Killua has learned to walk and run without making a sound. Rhythm Echo. An assassination art and advanced application of the Silent Gait technique, Rhythm Echo is a motion that creates multiple afterimages of the practitioner's body through a varying cadence of steps to confuse the opponent or create decoys. Expert in Tailing. Killua tailed Nobunaga and Machi around a town, with the two of them failing to spot him, although they clearly sensed his presence. Masterful Skater. Killua is extremely dexterous with his skateboard, performing acrobatic tricks with ease. Masterful Darts Player. Killua mastered the game when he was 6 or 7 with a count of 1,440 points. This skill came in handy against the Ortho siblings when he recognized the rules the brother was playing with. Nen. As a transmuter, Killua was most efficient in changing the properties and shape of his aura. Just like Gon's, Killua's talent is said to be absolutely astounding, found only in 1 out of 10 million people. Thanks to Biscuit's training, he has honed his skills in at least 2 Nen types other than his own, namely Enhancement and Conjuration. He's also mastered the 4 basic techniques and at least 5 of the advanced ones, the exceptions possibly being In and En, although he is able to extend his Ren to a radius of 57 centimeters to sense incoming attacks. He performed 10 successfully on the first try with next to no instructions, a feat which Wing described as both amazing and terrifying, and learned Ren and Gyo in only 1 night. He was also capable of performing Zetsu with great skill and without guidance after seeing Gon use it against Guido. It also earned him the praise of the Phantom Troop, although they were able to sense him. He's able to maintain Ren for 3 hours outside of combat without the slightest difficulty, and 10 at all times. He can form Ko in an instant, as shown when he used it to knock Gon out while the latter was going to fight Neferpitu. While Gon can release a bigger amount of aura, Killua is generally hailed as the one with the best control, to the point that by the time he confronted Razor, he was already capable of distributing his aura with a margin of error lower than 1%, which caused Biscuit to comment that she reached his degree of mastery only in her late 20s. In spite of his lack of experience, he can measure with accuracy how much aura he should employ, and in which area in a split second, relying solely on the instinctive knowledge granted by his fearsome potential. He easily got ahead of Gon during their training on Greed Island, overcoming his inexperience with sheer insight. Killua developed a series of Nen abilities in which he alters the properties of his aura to make it similar to electricity. This was inspired and made possible by the years of electric shocks he received as a child, both as training against torture and as punishment. Biscuit was very impressed that he could create such a complex Nen ability at his age. He can shock the opponent either through physical contact or while keeping his distance, channeling his aura through his yo-yos or throwing it in the form of a lightning strike. Although most Nen users receive no damage from the electricity itself, they're still hurt and paralyzed for a few instants. The peak of Killua's Nen skills are 2 Nen abilities collectively referred to as Godspeed, both of which use Killua's electric aura to vastly enhance his speed by allowing him to transcend the limits of his physical potential. Whirlwind makes his movements automatic, while Speed of Lightning allows him to remain in control of his body. Regardless of which core function he employs, he can regulate the discharge of electricity outside of his body, making it so an ally touching him will only feel a mild stinging sensation, whereas an enemy being struck by one of his blows will be painfully electrocuted, and even suffer burns if unprotected. Both applications can also be used to carry others, both to displace them and to protect them from enemy attacks. In order to generate electric aura, Killua needs to charge himself by letting electricity run through his body, such as by tasering himself or holding onto a plug. By his own admission, however, his electric aura is not very potent, and he runs out of it rather quickly. Another inconvenience is that Killua is not aware of exactly how much electric aura he produces, which can result in him depleting his reserves unexpectedly. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.